I am talking to the people in the past. I don't know why my audio mic is so high, but there we go. But good evening. Hope you're doing well. We're going to be reviewing the Durham conversation. I actually need to go ahead and Google the word deposition because I think I just used it for an alliteration. Deposition, definition. There's another alliteration. Especially in the process of giving sworn evidence. No, it actually works. Nice. Very cool. So basically I was watching the Durham. I wanted to see, oftentimes like leftoids, progressives, whatever, they say that like Durham is biased. And for those of you who don't know, I'm talking about, I think his first name's like Jeffrey, but he's the gentleman who did Hi from Kiwiland, New Zealand. Hello, Jeff Scott. And DGGL, hello, Ariane A. So Durham, whatever his first name is, he's the investigator that was appointed by William Barr in order to investigate the investigation into Donald Trump. We're going to get into the deposition, so you don't even have to worry about whether or not I'm telling the facts. There's a whole bunch of Destiny people who, or not Destiny people, there are a whole bunch of Democratic people, Freudian slip, who went ahead and said that he was biased, he gave up his professional credibility, he spent too much money, he took too much time, etc., etc. And I would like to actually show you him talking to Congress about it, because it actually is relatively spicy. There are Congress members who are getting spicy on the Democrat and the Republican side. They have competing narratives, and I also want to point out how some of the Democrat narratives, if they were Twitch and YouTube political debate streamers, we would be calling them dishonest, bad faith hacks. So that's why I wanted to show this. And then, before we do that, though, my dog is scratching at the door, so I'm going to do that. I'll give you a Destiny meme while I let my dog in, and then I'll break down something about the Destiny meme. So let's watch the Destiny meme.
No insurance whatsoever.
Be free. And I still, to this day, like, get nervous every time I have to call an ambulance.
Like, listen to this statement.
Nervous every time I have to call an ambulance.
How many fucking ambulances are you calling, Chief? Why is everybody dropping dead around you? Maybe they're trying to kill themselves to get away from how fucking retarded you are. Get the fuck out of here.
So, I just wanted to say, Destiny has always been a better chud, like a better anti-social justice warrior than he ever was a progressive or a liberal. Now, if you analyze Destiny's politics, he is a progressive. He's largely pro-LGBTQ. He's largely pro-trans. He tries to go where the studies are. He's more of a globalist than he is a nationalist. He wants some level of redistributive economics in order to make sure society works correct. In general, he supports police reform and like black civil rights. So on the political spectrum, he's absolutely a progressive. But then the leftoids, like, they'll lose their shit and they'll just go way too far. So 2016 to 2018, there wasn't any good debate representation of a progressive position. So de facto, don't know if I used that properly, but Destiny took on an anti-rightoid position to be the strong progressive and liberal debater who could actually go toe-to-toe with the rightoid personalities. And the truth is that the anti-social justice warrior crowd had really started phoning in their rhetoric, so they started just getting fucking stomped left, right, and center because they weren't actually doing their due diligence and their research to go up against somebody who was like rhetorically and research-wise gifted. So actually seeing Destiny's shifts in targets, where he'll still go after the right, like I don't think he's like gonna be bros with Tim Pool anytime, where he's gonna be like, yeah, Tim, you're absolutely right about everything. I think he'll still have a reflexive distaste for stupidity on any side, but I think he is a really good centrist and a really good like anti-social justice warrior representative, especially when he punches left. Because the default perspective, let's just analyze this real quick. I know I'm overthinking a 10-second clip that's largely funny, but overthink with me, okay? The default perspective from the Twitch and YouTube political space is that this person, this septum-piercing, beanie-having person who has anxiety about getting into an ambulance every other day, the default position is either to ignore that they're being dramatic about American healthcare, or it's to attack other people who are against universal healthcare. But because Destiny is so fucking annoyed with this person, he says that basically, that everybody around them wants to kill themselves, which is why they're calling so many fucking ambulances, which is a zinger that is gonna default to anti-social justice warrior people. So he's a powerful person wherever he aims his fire is good for me. So yeah. So, sup guys, just got off work. My back is killing me. I'm sorry, Jonah boy. Go get some ibuprofen, chug some water, drink some Gatorade, and chill out with us. We'll try to keep you relatively entertained. I thought Connor didn't plan on streaming tonight. Christian Valeris, you're right. So I was supposed to stream. My community post was from 2 days ago. It was on Tuesday. Basically, what happened was I got a stomach bug, and the stomach bug killed me. It knocked me out at least for a day. It wasn't too bad, but you can imagine stomach bugs. You're basically your tummy hurts, and you're losing fluids from a variety of locations. So Tuesday was not a fun night for me. Wednesday was okay. Thursday was okay, and then now I feel good again. And let's face it, I want to. Excuse me. I want to get live and do some content because fuck it. I love doing content. So let me go to my channel because I do need to plug my Dono link a little bit more tonight, which I know will be annoying. And thank you. I'm happy that somebody in Twitch chat, I didn't see your name, but I appreciate you saying that I got better. So my mother is recovering from surgery. It's not anything serious. It is a cancer surgery, but it's like a preemptive cancer surgery. She's in South Florida, and I'm going to spend money on gasoline that I don't want to spend. And then also, I didn't know if you guys knew about this, but babies are expensive. They cost money. So there's the Dono link. If you have dollary dues floating in your pocket, I would appreciate it if you use that link instead of doing super chats. One, on super chats, they take about 30%, and on two, it takes about a month for them to give me the money. Whereas the link that I posted there is instantaneous. It just goes to a PayPal. If you got money, send it to me. If you don't have money, then no problem, no big deal. Just watch and you'll give me ad revenue. And thank you, Based Egghead, for the well wishes. And we'll get into the content. I will be plugging that intermittently because this week is going to be a little bit tight, but I appreciate your assistance. And even if you're just here to watch, just watch. Just finished Tim Pool with Alex Stein's Timcast. I lost my brain cells after drinking a 24-pack in one sitting. Yeah, that's part of the reason why I don't watch Tim Pool. It's not because I have anything against the man. It's just because sometimes there are some very silly people on his podcast that hurt me psychically. So God gives his toughest battles to his strongest soldiers. True. And we're about to endure that. So I get it that this is more of an I'm really important content. Like I get that it's drier. It's congressional hearings, which is maybe not like the sexiest. We could review Hunter Avalon's, sex drama if you guys get bored and I start to see, viewership dropping off. But I want to make a point here. Pay attention to the arguments that are being forwarded by the Republicans, and pay attention to the arguments that are being forwarded by Durham, and pay attention to the arguments that are being forwarded by the Democrats. And probably about 10 minutes in, 20 minutes in, I'm going to show you how the arguments by the Democrats are being used optically in the media. So I want to show you these things because I think it'll point to why rightoids and centroids and everybody who's remotely in my political camp is a little bit conspiracy brained, especially when it comes to Hunter Biden, the Durham report, the FBI investigation, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah. So, and it's actually not that boring, Astronaut Farmer. For this content, for Congress, it's relatively spicy. I'll put it at like 1.25, so it's a little bit faster, but without further ado, let's get into the content.
Anytime, we welcome everyone to today's hearing on the report of Special Counsel John Durham. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Alabama to lead us in the pledge.
All right, everybody say it. You better say it at home.
United States of America.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you didn't say it at home, you're wrong. Go stand in a corner and put your nose to it.
Chair is recognized for an opening statement.
Nice. We should watch
3 years
that.
ago, in 11 months, July 24th, 2019, Bob Mueller sat in this room, in that chair, and told this committee, no collusion, no conspiracy, no coordination between President Trump and Russia. None. What the Democrats say? We don't care. We're going to keep going after President Trump. In fact, they didn't even wait one day. The next day, the phone call between President Trump and President Zelensky became the basis for their impeachment.
Hi, RC.
Republicans said maybe, maybe instead of the never-ending attacks on President Trump, maybe the country would be better off if we figured out how the whole false Trump-Russia narrative started. After 2.5 years of the Mueller investigation, 19 lawyers, 40 agents, $30 million, where they found nothing, maybe we should figure out how the whole lie started. And that's exactly what Mr. Durham has done.
Okay, so I might need crowdsourced politics, or I might need, who's the other person? Ruminate. I know he rebranded, but guess what? Your first brand always sticks. So right now, I'm just going to write down the arguments for the Republican. I forget this representative's name. I think it's like Jim Jordan or something like that. But he's saying that the Trump investigation was a lie, which is very strong wording. I would not word it that strong. Bob Mueller said there was no collusion, which allegedly is true. But I think something that Crowdsourced Politics said is that they found a bunch of Russians who wanted to talk to Trump people, and they saw a bunch of Trump people who were open to talking to Russians, but they never found Russians and Trump people actually talking and coordinating efforts. There was just like this vague Trump thing where they were like, yeah, I mean, if the Russians screw over Hillary Clinton, then I'm not going to complain. And then there was the Russians being like, yeah, if we help out Trump, then we're not going to complain. But they didn't find like a coordinated link between the two camps. And according to Durham, they actually found exculpatory information from one of the targets of the FISA warrants. But let's keep it going for now. I should let them explain.
In his report, he told us how the dossier was funded. He told us who funded, how eager the FBI was to use it, how they put the dossier in a FISA draft application just 2 days after receiving it. He told us that not one single substantive allegation in the dossier was ever corroborated, ever validated, yet it was used to spy on an American citizen associated with a presidential campaign. He told us there was no proper predicate for opening the Crossfire Hurricane investigation, and maybe most importantly, he told us the FBI, the preeminent law enforcement agency in the world, failed in its fundamental mission of adherence to the rule of law. And unfortunately, I think, once again, the Democrats will say, we don't care.
Okay, so I don't want to pause any of this too much because we do need to actually get through the substance, but I want to point out something substantive that was just said. So I believe he's referencing the Steele Dossier, which we'll get into later, was paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign. The CIA director briefed the FBI director, briefed Joe Biden, and briefed President Obama that the Clinton campaign was going to create opposition research against Trump, trying to tie Trump to Russian collusion efforts, and that was their angle that they were going with for the political attack. So several months later, the FBI, including someone who was like in the FBI who was briefed, basically helped start the investigation into Trump, knowing that the basis for the investigation was opposition research created by the Clinton campaign. Now, that's not illegal, right? Like, if you have opposition research against your opponent that is valid, then why wouldn't you be investigated? So if Trump, as an example, found that the Biden family was, harvesting hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars from overseas shady businessmen, there was no, culminations of the dealings, and that the Justice Department was ignoring it, why wouldn't they go to the Justice Department and say, hey, you need to investigate this? We basically have open bribery and corruption on an international scale in front of the government. Just because an opposition finds something damning doesn't mean that thing is not warranted in being investigated, and that cuts both ways. But let's continue.
It doesn't matter. We're never going to stop going after President Trump. In fact, 8 days ago, we saw...
All right, so we already have some cope in chat, so let's do it. OAF, I like CSP, but there's something about Ruminate that bothers the fuck out of me. He seems much more of a hyper-partisan. Well, yeah, he put in super partisan into a tweet. Did you miss the video of Prigozhin admitting on fucking video that he was put in charge of U.S. election interference by Putin? Holy cognitive dissonance. Mammal 186, no one has said that the Russians didn't try to interfere in the 2016 investigation. What we're repeating is the fact that the Mueller investigation found that there were Trump people who were willing to work with the Russians, at least this is according to Crowdsource Politics, and according to Ruminate, is that there were Trump people who were willing to work with Russians but never found an in. Then there were Russians who were willing to work with Trump people, but they never found an in. There was no communicative link that they found, and that, as far as they can tell, they worked as independent parties with aligned goals. That's a statement of the Mueller thing. So you putting caps lock on your comment and then saying, but the Russians interfered in the 2016 election, you've effectively changed none of the information that we're discussing. So I would recommend pressing the caps lock button to turn caps lock off and then try to type something that changes the calculus that we're evaluating information with. That's my recommendation. Continuing on.
How far they are willing to go with the indictment of President Trump. But frankly, this shouldn't surprise us. They told us their objective. In fact, it was an agent on the case of Crossfire Hurricane who told us what their objective was. We all remember the text message from Peter Strzok where he said, "Don't worry, we'll stop Trump." It started with the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. Mr. Durham has told us how wrong that was. Now we have an indictment of a former president who's winning in every single poll by his opponent's Justice Department. And in between those two events, we had the Mueller investigation, we had impeachment, we had 51 former intel officials falsely tell us the Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. We had a raid on President Trump's home, and of course we got Alvin Bragg's ridiculous case in New York.
See, this is where Jim Jordan, so just because I'm saying don't trust Democrats doesn't mean that I'm saying trust Jim Jordan. So this is bullshit, and you can smell the bullshit because it's partisan. So he's saying that the raid on Trump was bullshit, which is incorrect. He did take top secret documents home, so that was justified. As far as I can tell, the violation of law in New York where Trump paid off one of his prostitutes, Stormy Daniels, while he was banging her behind his wife's back, who was pregnant at the time. I don't know why that's a Republican or conservative thing to do. I get it. So, rich conservatives paying off their mistresses so they don't tell their wives in the press about their mistresses. Apparently, that's a very conservative thing to do. But I'm just saying it doesn't actually align with conservative values. That's just rich, shitty people values. I don't know why it's become a conservative or Republican value to defend rich people paying off their mistresses. But hey, I didn't create the fucked up country. I'm just living in it. So just because I'm saying don't trust the left doesn't mean that I'm saying trust the right. Jim Jordan is obviously a partisan.
7 years, nothing has changed. Don't believe me? We interviewed Stephen D'Antuono, former head of the Washington field office when the Trump classified document case began. Mr. D'Antuono told the committee, interviewed him just 2 weeks ago today. Mr. D'Antuono told the committee that when he asked the Department of Justice, why is there no U.S. attorney assigned to the Trump classified document case? Headquarters said, because we're running it. He suggested the Miami field office should do the raid instead of sending the folks from Washington.
Oh my God, we're gonna get so much cope. This is the problem with being a fucking centrist. Daniel Tucker, presidents can declassify anything they want, and Trump did have a memo stating that anything taken home was declassified. 1, link me the memo. 2, that contradicts with his own statement that he was showing classified information to a reporter, and he says, I could have declassified this, but I don't, and I no longer have the authority to do so, but this is really cool, and you should look at it anyways. Which is, unless they're using an audio deepfake, I'm just going to have to go with the man's own words. But feel free, if you want to, because we try not to be propagators of disinformation here on Counterpoints. Go ahead and link the memorandum where he says, hey guys, just so you know, anything I take home is declassified. Which, by the way, is one of the most retarded things to say anyways, because why would we just let former presidents take home whatever the fuck they wanted when they leave the job? But anyways, the tape isn't involved in any investigation. It's literally cited as a part of the fucking indictment. What are you talking about, Daniel Tucker? I literally think that you're just saying things at this point. But if I see you again in the chat, you better be linking the memorandum where he says that he can take home information and it's de facto declassified. That better be your next comment.
Field office down to Miami. How the folks in the Miami field office do it? Headquarters said no. He suggested there shouldn't be a raid. Instead, they should continue to work with President Trump's lawyers. Once again, headquarters said no. Mr. D'Antuono even said, how about when we get there? When we arrive at President Trump's home, we then call
Daniel Tucker, next comment. I'm telling you, you have said 3 things. 2 of them are demonstrably false. The next time you type in my comment section, it better be a link to the memo, or else I am going to block you from my chat. So go get the link now, or don't type in my chat. Those are your 2 options.
Call his lawyer and we do the search together. Again, headquarters said no. Another interesting fact, the lawyer who turned down Mr. D'Antuono's request happens to be the same person who is alleged to have pressured the attorney representing a Trump employee about a judgeship. Nothing has changed, and frankly, they're never going to stop. 7 years of attacking Trump is scary enough, but what's more frightening, any one of us could be next. In fact, it's already started. Parents at school board meetings are terrorists. Pro-life Catholics are extremists. Even journalists aren't safe. Federal Trade Commission, 13 letters. One of those letters to Twitter said, who are the journalists you're talking to? Think about that. They named 4 people personally. 2 come and testify in front of this committee. While they're in front of this committee, Democrats are asking them to reveal their sources, violate First Amendment principles. One of them, Matt Taibbi, while he's sitting at that table testifying to the Judiciary Committee, the IRS is knocking on his door. Parents, Catholics, journalists, but guess who gets it the worst? Guess who gets it the worst? Whistleblowers. If you dare come forward and tell Congress what's going on, look out. They will come for you. They will take your clearance. They will take your pay. They'll even take your kids' clothes. Just ask Garrett O'Boyle, who testified in front of this committee as well. Over the next few hours, we're going to hear the facts and details about the whole false Trump-Russian narrative, the Crossfire Hurricane investigation, and hopefully it will help change things at the Department of Justice. But regardless of what the Biden administration and the Garland Justice Department do, I know what Republicans in the House are committed to doing. We will work to dramatically change the FISA law, and we will do everything we can in the appropriations process to stop the federal government from going after the American people. Now I recognize the ranking member for an opening statement.
All right, hold on, let's pause because the tone is about to dramatically change. So, Steele Dossier, let's summarize Jim Jordan's statements real quick, just so we kind of have a overview of the argumentation. So, Jim Jordan, the Trump investigation was a lie. That's a bold statement. Just because something is based off of opposition research from your opponents, like we already said, that doesn't mean it's a lie. Bob Mueller said no collusion. As we discussed earlier, there were people in the Trump campaign who were willing to work with the Russians, and there were Russians who were willing to work with Trump. And as Mammal so kindly and calmly pointed out in our chat, there were Russians who claimed that they were working actively to try to get Trump elected because they preferred her over Hillary Clinton. Now, we haven't proven collusion, but there are Russian people who wanted to get Trump elected, and there are Trump people who didn't care if the Russians helped them out. That's true. The Steele Dossier was not corroborated before being put into a FISA warrant. So what happens is the Steele Dossier, which is, first things, the way that the investigation starts is a Trump official allegedly, according to an Australian diplomat, tells him at a bar, Trump is going to work with the Russians. And so the Australian reports it to the DOJ or to whoever. It gets back to them. They say, oh shit, we need to investigate that. Let's open up the investigation. Then they use the Steele Dossier, which is paid for by Clinton, in order to corroborate an investigation into Trump. That is the timeline as I understand it. If anybody has a different understanding, I'm more than happy to hear it from you, but that is my understanding of it. Then, once it's created, none of the information in the Steele Dossier is even attempted to be corroborated, meaning that the supporting documentation for the Steele Dossier, they don't try to figure out whether or not it's true. They just keep going with the investigation based off of the information that they find, which is going to be a problem later on. So you can say, Connor, that's not a problem because the target of their investigation would decide whether or not there was exculpatory information that basically undermines the investigation. So as long as they find exculpatory information, they can close the investigation. That's a problem later on. I'll let the timeline continue to play out. Let's check my notes one more time. Peter Strzok, the gentleman who was having an affair and it was caught on his cell phone that he wanted to prevent Trump from getting into office. He said that in text messages. He's like, I am the investigator of the Trump Crossfire Hurricane investigation, and you, my mistress, must know that I am going to block President President-elect or candidate Donald J. Trump from getting into the White House. I am G.I. Joe. You cannot stop me. He basically sent that in a text message that we have found out. So seems like there was a little bit of bias in the investigation. Peter D'Antuono, the person who did the raid into the Trump Mar-a-Lago residence to recover documents, he pushed back on whether or not they should even do that. That tells me nothing. I don't give a shit. If Trump has top secret documents and then they're requesting them and then Trump is refusing to turn them in and then he's showing it off to like reporters and all that kind of shit, then I don't care if he gets raided. Any one of us could be next? No, I'm not taking top secret documents home. Not all of us can be next. And by the way, if I get onto an FBI, I would view it as an insult if I'm not on an FBI watch list already. Dramatically change the FISA law. I don't know why. Because basically, as long as you actually go through the warrant process, conduct an investigation, then I don't really care. But I do think that they should slow down the targeting of American citizens by the counterterrorism wing of the United States. That is based. So right now, we're at like 70% cringe, 30% based from Representative Jim Jordan, and we're at a healthy chunk of facts that were outlined by that person. What's up, fellas? How you doing, Counterpoints? Pretty good. Posted you a link, Connor. Daniel Tucker. Let's go ahead and look. No need to be salty guy there, buddy. Actually like your 40K content and just decided to watch this just to be treated like shit. Well, welcome aboard. This is Twitch and YouTube politics. That's how we roll out here. Where's the link? Did you post it to my Twitter? Did you post it to my Discord? I'll go check my Twitter real quick. Notifications. Don't worry, we're going to wait. South Park. Oh my God, it's Russell. This is it? Daniel Tucker, why did you link this to me?
Oh my God, it's Russell Crowe.
Oh my God, it's Russell Crowe! Oh my God! Why don't you mind your own business, you scrouter?
All right, Daniel Tucker, you get a pass. And yes, I know that's not you. But if you actually want to DM me on Twitter, the link or whatever, because I don't know if the link is going to work, here's my handle. I'll be nicer, but don't come with that nonsense unless you come prepared. So, it's recognized in court as such, and every time judges reference the declassified law, it's at president's discretion. So again, thinking about it, it counts because Bill Clinton case about tapes was upheld. Oh, anyways, moving on. I think Republicoids are also copied in chat as well as Democratoids. But this is a centrist channel, so we'll get there. Let's go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On June 8th, a grand jury in Miami indicted former President Trump on 37 counts related to his mishandling of extraordinarily sensitive national security information, including information regarding defense and weapons capabilities of both the United States and foreign countries, United States nuclear programs, potential vulnerabilities of the United States and its allies to military attack, and plans for possible retaliation in response to a foreign attack. According to the indictment, the unauthorized disclosure of these classified documents could put at risk the national security of the United States, foreign relations, the safety of the United States military and human sources, and the continued viability of sensitive intelligence collection methods. And indeed, the indictment goes on to describe how the former president made such unauthorized disclosures. Even if you believe, as Chairman Jordan claims, that President Trump has committed no crime, surely we can agree.
Its opinion on the Islamic uprisings on France. I have nothing but pro-authoritarian things to say about cracking skulls and beating people up with riot shields in reference to rioters, typically. Is this a vote harder while paying King's ransom expecting change channel? Voluntarist girl, how much do you pay in annual taxes? Because depending on your annual tax answer, I'm going to laugh at you either way. So one, if you're paying less than 10% because you're broke as shit, I'm going to laugh because you benefit from the American empire. And then also if you pay 40% of your taxes to the federal government because you're making a few $1 million a year and you benefit from the American empire, I'm going to laugh at you either way. So, feel free to post your tax income bracket in chat whenever you have an answer. So let's continue.
That it is dangerous and profoundly irresponsible to have taken these documents from the White House and left them unsecured in Mar-a-Lago. Don't take just my word for it. Trump's Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper, said that the former president's handling of this information put U.S. service members' lives and our national security.
Arn Fugaku says, friendly reminder, Nadler shat his pants on live television. Thank you, that is all. Listen, if I don't shit my pants by the time that I am dead, then we're not doing enough, okay? So, listen, only base people shit their pants. Saying you're a better willing slave is not an answer when taxation is based on theft. Consent is not duress. Listen, libertarians, voluntarists, I hope you're 14. Because honestly, if you think that, like, oh, God, we're about to go on like a 20-minute tangent. We're not going to. This is not Reverie Roundtable, and you are not Fabian Liberty. Every time you talk to an anarcho-capitalist, you relitigate. It's just like talking to an anarcho-communist. You basically relitigate society all the way back to a statist society every single time. And then when they're like, oh, well, we'll just pay private organizations to help us litigate problems, and then we'll have like a private police force do all this kind of shit, blah, 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 blah. And then you're like, well, how do you avoid the conflicts of interest of people paying these organizations in order to do it? It's like, well, we'll do insurance pools. And it's like, okay, at what point are you just participating in a system that's more complicated and less effective and more stupid than the current one? So, does consent matter to you? No. I'm a grapist. I love grapes. So no, I don't care about consent. As a matter of fact, there you go. All right. You're in a timeout. Enjoy your timeout like a child. Because you literally came into a chat about something completely different and started just spouting fucking ANCAP propaganda. Shut the fuck up. Pay attention to what we're talking about. Or don't come here. So, yeah. All right, so enjoy your timeout like a fucking child. You did not consent to the timeout, but I exerted my authority over you through an improper hierarchy. So enjoy it. Enjoy me non-consensually ruining your night. So have fun. Come back nice or don't come back at all.
Security at risk. And Trump's handpicked Attorney General, Bill Barr, with whom I agree on very little, hit the nail on the head when he described the former president's legal troubles as, quote, entirely of his own making. He had no right to these documents. The government tried for over a year, quietly and with respect, to get them back, and he jerked them around. When he faced a subpoena, he didn't raise any legal arguments. He engaged in a course of deceitful conduct. That was a clear crime if those allegations are true, close quote. The former president could have, at any time, for months, simply returned the documents and avoided prosecution. But House Republicans do not want to talk about any of that. They seem incapable of assigning any agency or responsibility to Donald Trump for problems that are Trump's and Trump's alone. Instead, Republicans have planned this hearing and constructed an entire false narrative around this work of Special Counsel Durham in an effort to distract from the former president's legal troubles and mislead the American public. To be clear, the Durham report is by itself a deeply flawed vessel. After 4 years, thousands of employee hours, and more than $6.5 million in taxpayer dollars.
Pause. What's this guy's name? Nadler? Let's go ahead. He's really concerned about $6.5 million. So this is all a distraction. The Durham report is cringe and costs $6 million. Jerry Nadler. Let's look it up. Jerry Nadler. Jerry Nadler net worth. Where is it worth? Oh, don't check the early life section. Oh no! This line of attack is not a good one. Oh no! Potter taking the L. Oh, I have to take an L. I have to. No, 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 not cha-ching. Not cha-ching at all. Yo, okay, so let me tell you. Let me tell you what happened, what my debate line of attack was, okay? So my debate line of attack, what I would think is this guy, he's effectively done a Trump mishandled classified information and disclosed it improperly. In reference to the Durham investigation, if this was Twitch and YouTube politics, we would call this a whataboutism, where rather than dealing with the situation at hand, which is whether or not not the Durham investigation, but the Mueller investigation was improperly supported by documentation and politically motivated. That's like the main thing. That's what we're trying to determine. Bringing up Trump's mishandling of classified information is a whataboutism. You're bringing up what about the other side? They did something wrong. And it's actually not pertinent to our conversation at all. So that's number one. Number two, it's an ad hominem, if this was Twitch and YouTube politics. He's saying the Durham investigation is cringe. He hasn't told us why it's cringe. He just said that the Durham investigation is cringe and it costs $6 million. Now, I'm used to American politicians taking their clout and influence and then using that to leverage wealth from the private sector and then stuffing their pockets with like private earned money from investments. That is what I'm used to. So I figured that if Mr. Nadler was complaining about the money that was spent on this investigation, oh my God. Shut up. Voluntarist girl, rather than taking her time out, she moved over to Twitch chat. That is cringe. You are cringe. Stop distracting from the show. Shut up and talk about what we're talking about. I just muted you on Restream, so you can say whatever you want over there, and the people in Twitch chat can fucking mute. But literally, how could you not just enjoy your time out and enjoy the show? Why did you jump to a different social media platform? What is wrong with you? You literally have nothing better to do on a Friday night. That is sad. Anyways, you shouldn't be spending your time shit-talking me in chat. You should be spending your time contributing to the conversation, because that's the better way to spend your Friday night. Anyways, all right, back to Nadler. So I wanted to attack Nadler because he's like, oh, it cost $6 million. What is this guy worth? And I was expecting him to be like a similarly corrupt, like Nancy Pelosi figure who had a few $100 million off of private investments. And this dude's worth like 300 grand. So this guy barely paid off his mortgage. He's now worth like 1 to 5 million. So you know what? Representative Nadler, I normally criticize American politicians for stuffing their pockets filled with the excesses of the private, public, corporate alliance. You are not the person I am shit-talking. Congratulations. I still think you're annoying. I still think you're a partisan hack. I wouldn't be surprised if you had hidden offshore accounts, but you are not the person I am shit-talking tonight. So let's move on.
Special Counsel Durham failed to uncover any wrongdoing that Justice Department Inspector General Horowitz had not already found in 2019. He brought just 2 cases to trial and lost them both. Both defendants were acquitted in mere hours. The single conviction that Special Counsel Durham obtained involved a single charge of lying to the FBI, a case developed and handed to him by the Inspector General, and one resolved by a quick plea bargain. The report itself outlined some fairly glaring investigative missteps. The FBI apparently never even looked at a thumb drive of key evidence related to allegations of contact between the Trump campaign and the Russian government via a Russian cell phone. Nor, says the report, did the FBI ever examine questionable computer contacts between the Trump Organization and Alfa Bank, one of the largest banks in Russia. The report also fails to recommend a single remedial measure that the Justice Department or the FBI might take to address certain process-related concerns, largely because DOJ and FBI have already implemented the changes recommended by the Inspector General 3.5 years ago. Now, I understand that, like the former president, many MAGA Republicans had a lot riding on the Durham investigation. I understand that they might be disappointed with where it landed, but that is no excuse for making things up. First, the Durham report unequivocally concludes that the FBI not only had the evidence to open an investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election, but actually had an affirmative obligation to investigate ties between the Russian government and the Trump campaign. It is simply not true, as some Republicans have claimed, that the Durham report suggests that there should not have been an investigation. Affirmative obligation. Those are Mr. Durham's words, not mine. Second, the Durham report shows that the FBI began its investigation when an aide to the Trump campaign disclosed in May 2016 that the campaign knew that Russia had thousands of emails that would embarrass Hillary Clinton. The aide bragged about it at a bar. An Australian diplomat who overheard the remark reported it, and the investigation began. It is simply not true, as the most extreme voices in this room have claimed, that the investigation was somehow launched by the Clinton campaign. That particular conspiracy theory is off by several months. Nor is it true that the FBI was opposed to Trump from the beginning. For example, the Durham report tells us that the FBI encouraged a confidential human source to infiltrate the Clinton campaign, not the Trump campaign, and take steps to entrap, unsuccessfully, aides to Secretary Clinton. This story is right there on pages 74 and 75 of the report. I suspect we won't hear a word about it from House Republicans today because it does not fit the MAGA narrative. Finally, nothing in the Durham report disputes the central findings of Special Counsel Robert Mueller. Namely, Russia interfered in the 2016 election. It did so to help Donald Trump, and the Trump campaign welcomed this interference. This last point is important because it tells us how Mr. Durham became special counsel in the first place, and it goes to the heart of the fully false narrative of MAGA victimhood. From the day that Special Counsel Mueller began his work, Donald Trump and his political allies have railed against an imagined conspiracy against the former president. The Russia investigation was a setup. It was a witch hunt. Obama did it. We need to investigate the investigators. Then came the Mueller report. The Mueller report was delivered to Attorney General Barr on Friday, March 22nd, 2019. The next Monday, Mr. Durham was in Barr's office. A week later, a colleague emailed Mr. Durham to ask about, quote, the project that Durham and Barr were working on. While we on this committee were fighting to get access to the Mueller report, Mr. Durham was already working on an investigation to undercut its central findings. A few weeks later, the Trump administration announced Mr. Durham's investigation into the investigators. And by August 2019, Mr. Durham and Attorney General Barr were on a plane to Europe, jointly.
Thank you. I'm assuming it's Froggy style because it's always Froggy style. Out there in chat, giving out some memberships and all that kind of stuff. Sincerely appreciated. Any kind of revenue that you guys have is deeply, deeply, deeply appreciated. We are in the last week of parental leave, so I am getting back into the wage cage on the 8th of July. So I do appreciate the membership donations. However, if you are not Froggy style, and if you're somebody else who has a hole burning in your pocket with some cash that you want to help me out with, I just linked in the chat my PayPal link. And basically what's going on there, it's a dono link. You can click on there, click any dollar amount that you want. It will instantaneously come to me. The reason why I'm soliciting a little bit more tonight for money is because basically it's a tight week. You know, we have enough money for groceries, but it's going to be tight. There's not very much flexibility in the budget. And also we're going to see my mother, who is recovering from surgery. It is cancer surgery, but it's not very serious. She just had like a lumpectomy or something like that. But we are driving to South Florida in order to knock it out. So if you do have some dollary dues burning a hole in your pocket, you want to help me out with some gas money or some grocery money, go ahead and click on the PayPal link, the Stream Elements link that I just posted in chat, and use it to get us some dollary dues. I have summarized Mr. Nadler's statement so far. Let's finish it up, though, before I break it down.
Hunting down non-existent evidence of Donald Trump's deep state conspiracy theories. If the duo ever found evidence proving that Donald Trump was right all along, that evidence certainly never made it into the Durham report. It has been alleged, however, that they found evidence implicating the former president in certain financial crimes during their trip. Incidentally, that information, too, is missing from Mr. Durham's final pages. When he could not give Donald Trump evidence of a deep state conspiracy, Mr. Durham gave him the next best thing, a public narrative with Hillary Clinton as the villain. Over the ensuing years, Mr. Durham constructed a flimsy story built on shaky inferences and dog whistles to far-right conspiracy theorists. Although he lost both times, he took a case to trial. By prolonging his investigation, Durham was able to keep Donald Trump's talking points in the news long after Trump left office. With a loose approach to DOJ norms, protecting the reputation of the agency, and a cavalier disregard for the privacy and reputational rights of others, Mr. Durham's investigation operated as headline generator for MAGA Republicans. Less than half a year into his 4-year investigation, Mr. Durham publicly disputed Inspector General Horowitz's conclusion that the FBI was warranted in opening a full investigation, in violation of DOJ rules protecting investigations from appearances of political bias. Mr. Durham similarly flouted guidelines designed to protect third parties from reputational injury when he used his 2 indictments to accuse the Clinton campaign of a vast conspiracy to tie Trump to Russia. But at the end of the day, Mr. Durham never found what he was looking for. He cannot dispute a single conclusion in the Mueller report. He cannot prove a magnificent deep state conspiracy. And he cannot say that the FBI investigation into the Trump campaign's many ties to Russia never should have happened. And again, I can see why this would be disappointing to some. But instead of owning up to his failure, the Durham report doubles down on theories that lost spectacularly before 2 unanimous juries. The report also references classified material that has been called likely disinformation to lay out a series of accusations against the former president's perceived enemies. By presenting his so-called findings in this way, swiping a Republican boogeyman and hiding inconvenient truths in footnotes, the Durham report gives Donald Trump one last talking point. It did not have to be this way. It may be hard to remember, but at the outset of the Durham investigation, Mr. Durham was a well-respected career prosecutor with a solid reputation. The Attorney General is supposed to appoint a special counsel to prevent the appearance of politicization in a criminal investigation. Mr. Durham could well have lived up to that expectation. Instead, what we got was a political exercise that operated with ethical ambiguity and existed to perpetuate Donald Trump's unfounded claims. The investigation failed in its political objectives.
Oh my God, wrap it up.
Did real damage to a department that is still recovering from the excesses of the Trump administration. And despite Mr. Durham's best efforts, a reckoning is well underway. Do not be misled. Former President Donald Trump is not a victim. He did this to himself. For all of its flaws, the Durham report does not show that anyone else is responsible for the president's legal woes, past, present, or future. Anyone who tells you otherwise is simply making it up. I thank the chairman, and I yield back.
Yo, this is actually hilarious because like it's boomer language, but it's Twitch politics language too. All right, so let's break down the Nadler real quick. So, as mentioned earlier, Nadler brought up the fact that Trump mishandled classified information and disclosed it improperly. This has nothing to do with whether or not the investigation into Donald Trump was launched properly or not. And so basically, in Twitch and YouTube politics, we would call this a whataboutism. Now, it could be relevant in the fact that, you know, Trump's a piece of shit, so anybody associated with him is a piece of shit. But, you know, we don't know that. So we would go with whataboutism for now. The Durham report is cringe and costs $6 million. So, you know, I don't know what appeal this is, but it's not a logical fallacy that I know of. But we tried to counterattack with Nadler's net worth, and unfortunately, he's a broke bitch. So we actually take the L on that. The single charge resolved by a plea bargain while 2 of them were kicked out of court. The single charge resolved, allegedly, so take this with a grain of salt, but as I understand it, was an FBI agent beefing up a FISA warrant by Photoshop editing an email. So you had an FBI agent who digitally altered evidence in order to beef up a warrant. That's a big fucking deal. Now, you can say, like, it didn't result in a conviction, it didn't do anything crazy, etc., but at the same time, that's a big fucking deal. So just to say, like, oh yeah, he pled out, no fucking big deal, it's like, you're lying now. Like, you're fucking lying about the importance of this shit. And then on top of that, proving and convicting people in our judicial system is actually relatively difficult. Like, I get it. We've locked up like tons of black people for having weed in their pockets and not doing anything wrong on a day-to-day basis. We just love locking up black people. But it is relatively difficult to lock up well-appointed, well-lawyered white people who know not to talk. So basically saying that you only got 3 charges, only one of them resulting in a conviction, and the 2 of them were dismissed, that doesn't tell me fucking anything when it comes to our justice system. So the Alpha Bank, and there was other damning information that they found out about Trump that they didn't investigate. That is worthy of exploration. Like if Barr and if Trump actually did have alleged like financial malfeasance and it wasn't investigated, that wouldn't be the purview of Durham. That would be the purview of somebody else. So if he took that information and he concealed it, that would show me
Good luck,
some
hope
level.
everything works out.
Thank you kindly, Anon. And Anon just gave me $20, so that's gas in the tank. So I'm going to plug my little link again. If you have any money, then go ahead and send it. But anyways, getting back to the stream. So if Durham and Barr covered up the information, then that would speak to their partisan bias. But if they didn't cover up the information, if they passed it off to somebody else, that has nothing to fucking do with what we're talking about tonight. Then, Justice Department already implemented the recommendations that are put forth by Durham and implemented them back in 2019. This is a classic, and I fucking love it. It's basically like when you catch your kid with their hand in the cookie jar, and then they say, well, as a result, I'm going to eat broccoli 3 extra times this week to balance out for the cookies, and you don't even need to punish me in the first place because I'm going to force myself to eat more vegetables. That has nothing to do with whether or not you caught them with their goddamn hands in the cookie jar. It's just whether or not they started eating broccoli afterwards. So that's like a cute little thing that they love to bring up over and over again. So accusing, yeah, we already got that one. He's accusing Durham of playing optics for clout. So basically, he's, to put it in Twitch and YouTube political terms, he's accusing Durham of being a Trump orbiter. He's like, Your Honor, how can my client be guilty? The investigation and the prosecution are clearly Trump orbiters. It's actually like a really funny rhetorical strategy that, you know, like if it wasn't so obnoxious, I would find it pretty fucking funny. Finally, Durham disclosed publicly information that insulted the FBI and the Clinton campaign. So this has nothing to do with the validity of the information that Durham disclosed. It only has the ability to alter information if it actually affects the information provided. So basically, this is him saying like, oh, well, you talk shit that you weren't supposed to in public. Okay, does that alter the shit he talked? Or is the shit he talked actually true? Because if the shit he talked was true, I don't care. Finally, he says, Durham is cringe. And he says, cope and seethe. And then he ends his time. I actually really like this. I get that this is like dry because it's boomers like talking about shit that like not a lot of people really want to watch or whatever. So it's, you know, it's C-SPAN entertainment. But for me, this is actually hysterical watching boomers say, you're a fucking orbiter. You're cringe. Your investigation was cringe. It cost too much money. It took too much time. You're a Trump orbiter and a Trump sycophant. Get get Trump's dick out of your ear and fuck you. Like that's what Nadler just said. Even though he said it in the most boring, Jewy, 5-minute fucking ranty way that he could. So pretty fucking funny. Ironic coming from a Destiny orbiter. Yeah, well, you know, we're a Destiny orbiter, but we're currently doing Destiny content that might cause difficulty in the relationship. It's not that a kid says, I'm already eating broccoli 3 times a day. I think the better analogy is a kid gets in trouble with his mom and the grandparents get involved, go over everything with everyone, and only say the same things that the mom did. Nema, I'll accept your analogy, but at the same time, part of the accusation is that this is an incestuous pit of vipers who all watch each other's backs. And from my perspective, that has not been a debunked talking point, especially with Hunter Biden catching 2 misdemeanors with no prison sentences, being able to pay back all of the money on his fucking bribes that he fucking concealed for decades. More information coming to light that he was leveraging Biden's name in order to fucking conduct his business dealings. And Biden, those messages basically saying that Biden was likely more involved than people said, and Democrats still saying it's a fucking nothing burger. So honestly, if I'm biased in a certain direction, where I think that this is a pit of fucking vipers that all look out for each other, I think that the people who say that there's nothing there are equally biased in an opposite direction. Yeah, so, yeah, Jonah Boy, so, you say it. With all due respect, Congressman, you are cringe, blue-pilled, oh, stop moving the chat, blue-pilled, and not based. Okay, so Nitsu, I'm going to explain something to you real quick. Wouldn't Destiny want that, considering it gives attention to him? Of course, but the finesse of being a Destiny orbiter is you have to get into just enough fights over the right kind of content where it doesn't burn the bridge, but then also you can't be so afraid of fights that you're fucking boring. So it's actually, I know that from the outside, it like, y'all don't give a shit because y'all don't give a shit whether or not these relationships are maintained. But for somebody who's actually trying to like network, stay on everybody's relative good side, have good contentious debates, but not burn bridges, that's actually a relatively difficult social atmosphere to negotiate, especially with people who don't mind burning bridges in the first place. Why be a Destiny orbiter in the first place, like I said before? Nitsua, because it's kind of, sorry, we're getting distracted. I'm getting one guide over here, which is a term I learned from Chud Logic. Technically, I'm a Chud Logic orbiter at this point. I'm actually a Lauren Southern Chud Logic orbiter. But why interact with Destiny? Because he has 600,000 subscribers and a lot of views, and a lot of people watch him to hate him, and a lot of people watch him to like him. And yeah, it's it's an interesting area to be combative but still have fun. Sasha Lynn says, hey, Counterpoints, good evening. Naima says, it may not be debunked, but it does make the Durham report feel unremarkable if the only thing a special counsel turns up is admittedly problematic agent photoshopping and evidence. Counterpoints. Naima, all right, so if people feel like I'm biased in one direction, the reason why I take issue with what you've just said is we would never accept it in any other scenario. And I'm sorry for getting Multiguide right now. I'm getting gangbanged by chat. But if there was an investigation where a cop planted weed on somebody in order to get them a conviction, and even if they caught like a fucking misdemeanor, we wouldn't say it wasn't a big deal that the cop planted weed on the person. And the reason why is because, one, that's probably not the first time that the cop planted weed on them. And two, it speaks to an institutional bias where the institution is willing to make shit up in order to achieve its goals. So I think that you can appeal to a consequentialist thing like not that bad of shit happened, so what's the big deal? But I think it's pretty fucking bad. So anyways, all you gotta do is suck his cock. Never mind, that doesn't seem to work anymore. Yeah, I don't think having sex with Destiny has given you that great of clout for a long time. I think he's always been willing to go to war with orbiters no matter what, regardless of whether or not he makes out with you. Chud W for one, but more to the point, I hope you maintain a good relationship with DGG, even though I don't like him. Yeah, no, I like DGG just fine. We had some spicy moments, that's it. All right. Here's my little tip thing. We did get like an extra like 30 people or something at some point. Again, I will be plugging my donos a little bit more. I know it's annoying. We'll get back into the content momentarily. But thank you to the $45 that was already donated. I will be using it for gas and groceries. I'm going back off of paternity leave in a week. I would appreciate it if you use the link that I provided, because if you do a super chat or something like that, I'm not going to get the dollar reduced for a month. Whereas right now, I'm trying to pay groceries or get enough groceries for the next week. I'm trying to get enough gasoline to go see my mom because she's recovering from surgery. And the money is more important now than it is 3 weeks from now. For 3 weeks from now, I'm not going to be rich, but I'll have enough money to get by. This week is particularly important. So if you want to click on that Stream Elements link and you got some money, I'm not going to do it. And then Nihama, I have to move on, so I can't read it right now, but I appreciate you. Ericota, I did see your question before, so I'll answer it now. Opinion on the Supreme Court decisions today? Listen, generally, I'm for free association, and I'm against like affirmative action. I think that there are absolute like things that you can appeal to as far as public access. Like, if the public has access to your services, then you should service every member of the public. But at the same time, I also think that compelling religious people to do specific services for things that are against their religion, I don't know if I agree with that. So I think, like, I should, I think, like, it should be case by case, and then maybe some exemptions for religious people, and that's it. Am I eligible for benefits from my neck and back? Yes, but we're waiting on them to do something about it. So, but we're waiting.
Objection. All other opening statements will be included in the record. Today's witness is the Honorable John Durham. Mr. Durham was appointed as a special counsel in 2020 to investigate intelligence activities, investigations arising out of the 2016 presidential campaigns. He's a career prosecutor, having served as the U.S. Attorney for the District of Connecticut and in various other roles.
Thank you, Froggy Style. Your parasocial love is deeply appreciated.
With that office since 1989. Prior to that, he served with the Department of Justice, the Boston Strike Force on organized crime, and in various state-level prosecutors' offices. We welcome our witness and thank him for appearing today. We will begin by swearing you in. Would you please rise and raise your right hand, Mr. Durham?
Thank you, Nama.
Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge, information, and belief, so help you God? Let the record show that the witness has answered in the affirmative. Thank you. You may be seated. Please know that your written testimony will be entered into the record in its entirety. Accordingly, we ask that you summarize your testimony in 5 minutes, but we'll give you a little extra time if you need it. Mr. Durham, you may begin. Hit your mic there, Mr. Durham, and just keep it on if you can throughout the day.
Is it on?
Yep, it's on now. Thank you.
Again, good morning, Chairman Jordan, Ranking Member Nadler, and members of this committee. As the committee knows, on May 13th, 2019, Attorney General Barr directed me to conduct a preliminary review into certain matters related to federal investigations concerning the 2016 presidential election campaigns. That review subsequently developed into several criminal investigations and gave rise to my subsequent appointment as special counsel in these matters. Many of the most significant issues documented in the report that we have written, including those relating to lack of investigative discipline, failure to take logistical and logical investigative steps, and bias, are relevant to important national security interests that this committee and American people are concerned about. If repeated and left unaddressed, these issues could result in significant national security risks and further erode the public's faith and confidence in our justice system. As we said in the report, our findings were sobering. I can tell you, having spent 40 years plus as a federal prosecutor, they were particularly sobering to me. A number of my colleagues who spent decades in the FBI themselves, they were sobering. While I'm encouraged by some of the reforms that have been implemented by the FBI, the problems identified in this report, anybody who actually reads the report and the details of the report, the documented portions of the report, I think would find that the problems identified in the report are not susceptible to overnight fixes. As we said in the report, they cannot be addressed solely by enhancing training or additional policy requirements. Rather, what is required is accountability, both in terms of the standards to which our law enforcement personnel hold themselves and in the consequences they face for violation of laws and policies of relevance. I'm here to answer your questions. I appreciate the opportunity to. I'll answer them to the best of my ability, and I hope to be of service to your oversight function. As I'm sure you know, the Department of Justice has issued some guidelines as to what I'm authorized to discuss and those things that I am not authorized to discuss. In this regard, accordingly, I'll refer principally to the report. I do want to emphasize a few points at the outset, however. First, I want to emphasize in the strongest terms possible that my colleagues and I carried out our work in good faith, with integrity and in the spirit of following the facts wherever they lead, without fear or favor. At no time and in no sense did we act with a purpose to further partisan and political ends. To the extent that somebody suggests otherwise, that's simply untrue and offensive. Second, the findings set forth in this report are serious and deserve attention from the American public and its representatives. Let me just briefly highlight a few of those. For one, we found troubling violations of law and policy in the conduct of highly consequential investigations directed at members of a presidential campaign and ultimately a presidential administration. To me, it matters not whether it was a Republican campaign or a Democrat campaign. It was a presidential campaign. Our team comprised dedicated and experienced prosecutors and law enforcement agents who worked day in and day out through the entire COVID epidemic in the office trying to interview people, all in an effort to try to get to those facts and the ground truth. That such a group of people made these findings experienced FBI agents, experienced prosecutors, not people by and large from Washington, but from other parts of the country. The fact that these people made these findings, as reflected in the report, is of concern, and should be of concern to any American who cares about our civil liberties, the rule of law, and the just and proportionate application of the law to all of us. Whether we're friends or we're foes, the law ought to apply to everybody in the same way. During our investigation, we charged a former FBI agent who pleaded guilty to the felony offense of altering and fabricating a portion of a document used to obtain a court order, a FISA order, of surveillance of a United States citizen, which in our view is a significant problem. Several of the relevant FISA applications at issue in the Crossfire investigation omitted references to what was clearly relevant and highly exculpatory information that should have been disclosed to the FISA court. Multiple FBI personnel who signed or assisted in preparing renewal applications for that same FISA warrant acknowledged that they did not believe that the target, Mr. Page, was a threat to national security, much less a knowing agent of a foreign power, which is what the law requires. It appears from our investigation that the FBI leadership dismissed those concerns. Another aspect of our findings concerned the FBI's failure to sufficiently scrutinize information it received or to apply the same standards to allegations it received about the Clinton and Trump campaigns. As our report details, the FBI was too willing to accept and use politically funded and uncorroborated opposition research, such as the Steele Dossier. The FBI relied on the dossier in FISA applications, knowing there was likely material originating from a political campaign, a political opponent. It did so even after the President of the United States, the FBI and CIA directors and others received briefings about intelligence suggesting that there was a Clinton campaign plan underway to stir up a scandal tying Trump to Russia. The accuracy of the intelligence was uncertain at the time, but the FBI failed to analyze or even assess the implications of the intelligence in any meaningful way. When the FBI learned that the primary source of information for the Steele Dossier, which was basically the guts of the narrative about there being a well-coordinated conspiracy involving Trump and the Russians, when they learned that Danchenko was the primary subsource for those reports, it was at a time when the FBI already knew that Danchenko himself had previously been the suspect of an FBI espionage investigation. He was suspected of being a Russian asset. And nonetheless, they signed him up as a paid informant without further investigation of that espionage concern, to say nothing of resolving that espionage matter before using Danchenko and Danchenko's information. And when the FBI and Special Agent Mueller's office learned that Steele's primary subsource likely had gathered important portions of the dossier information during travels to Russia with one Charles Dolan, it inexplicably decided not to interview Dolan or investigate his activities. Finally, I would like to add that although our work exposed deep concerns concerning facts about the conduct of these investigations, our report should not be read to suggest in any way that Russian election interference was not a significant threat. It was. Nor should it be read to suggest that the investigative authorities at issue no longer serve important law enforcement and national security interests. They do. Rather, responsibility for the failures and transgressions that occurred here rests with the people who committed them or allowed them to occur. Again, to my mind, the issues raised in the report deserve close attention from the American people and their elected representatives here in Washington. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, this is... Thank you, Jonah, for the $10. And thank you, Froggy Style, for the $13.37, and thank you, Naima, for the $4.28, I think. Honestly, like, I know I'm not, like, rich or whatever. Here's the link again. Anything you got, I know, basically, like, I'm not going to starve, so I don't want you guys to think that. I will be able to eat ramen and eggs and noodles and spaghetti and all that kind of stuff for the next week, and you guys are already gave me $65. That is already enough to probably get me gasoline to and from South Florida. Now, obviously, I don't like eating just spaghetti for a week. So any other money that you have donated is going to be appreciated. Obviously, I would also like to do this full-time eventually as well, and I can't survive off of just a spaghetti budget with 2 kids and a wife. However, your donations already are sincerely appreciated. Thank you, Jonah. Thank you, everybody who's already contributed. So somebody saying that he seems nervous or whatever. Yeah, I see his hand shaking, but like, you know, I've been in these scenarios before where you're getting interviewed by incredibly incompetent people in front of hundreds or thousands of people. And that's obviously going to bear pressure down on you. And if you're an experienced speaker, what will typically happen is you'll have a lot of pressure Thank you, whatever, 4690. If you can use the link, though, not that you need to. You already gave me a dono. I appreciate it. But you did do a super chat. The link that I provided in chat goes straight to me instead of getting paid out in a month. And I don't need the money necessarily in a month. I need the money now because we're going to visit my mother. But anyway, experienced public speakers, there's a lot of pressure before you speak because you know that everybody's waiting for you to speak. And then basically once you get into it, once you start getting into the information and the flow and all that kind of stuff, a lot of that anxiety and nerves are going to be alleviated. So I understand that he looks nervous, but that doesn't really have anything to do with the veracity of his statements. But let's go through his statements right now, because basically I think that a lot of this, for anybody who says that Durham's biased, and I'm part of the reason why I titled the show the way that I titled it, I double dog dare Destiny to debunk this Durham deposition, which I think is a hilarious title. The reason why I titled it the way that I titled it is because from what I've seen, now maybe I'm biased, but from what I've seen, Durham seems like a competent, and thank you, Anonymous, for the 690. That might be whatever, 4690. Thank you kindly, sir. I sincerely appreciate it. But Durham seems like a compelling, intelligent, competent, and attempting to be as unbiased as possible person who does not view himself as a partisan hack, who despite that is being attacked as a partisan hack. And so if I bumped into a debate figure like Destiny or, well, thank you, Anonymous, then. But whatever, 4690, thank you for the $2 dono through the super chats. Money is great. So Durham seems like a competent fellow, and when you work 40 years as a prosecutor, you are not biased to the political system because your job is to investigate and prosecute crime. So especially if you're working organized crime, which I think he said that he was, no Republican is going to come out and say, yeah, we support organized crime, don't investigate this. And maybe a few Democrats will. But, wow. Okay, Felix Fenney. Lol, imagine calling Durham not a political hack. Felix Fenney, you are the perfect example. Please share with us why Durham is a political hack. I would love to hear your substantive information. Please mount your camera to the wall or put it on a pole and mount it to the ceiling so your camera won't shake when you are touching your desk. That's all I ask. Well, it's on a tripod and the tripod is pushed up against the desk, so if you want me to change my rig, then you need to give me enough money to change my rig. He is a politician. Felix Fenney, you fucking retard. He's a prosecutor. For 40 fucking years, he worked as a prosecutor. I'm sure that there is a certain level of brown-nosing that you have to do in order to get into the upper echelons of the Justice Department and to be boys with Barr. But at the same time, if you are assigned an investigation against people that are not politically motivated for the investigation to be interfered with, then you probably don't have a partisan bias. He's not a senator. He's not a state politician. He's not a representative. He's not any of that shit. He's a fucking prosecutor. So Felix Fenney, don't say retarded shit in my chat unless you want me to get fucking pissy with you. God damn. Can you name any other 40-year prosecutor not Durham? Asking for a friend? No, because they're not public figures, you fucking asshole. Are you serious? All right, I'm muting your ass. I'm not going to get one good. There you go. Enjoy talking to the void, you fucking retard. Anyways, moving on. So, Durham working as a prosecutor for 40 fucking years. I'm not saying that no political bias will enter it. However, if you're talking about a gentleman who has worked in the halls of power for a long time, prosecuting people, primarily criminal organizations, then I think you're fine. Wow, that's a toxic stream. Okay, well, fuck off then. Don't be a fucking idiot in my chat and then expect me to just tolerate it. I can see you. I can see all of you. So if you say something stupid, and then I ask you for evidence of your stupid position, and then you give me a half-assed fucking answer that has nothing to do with what the fuck we're talking about, then I'm not going to listen to you. So, suck it. Anyways. Are you like Sauron in here, bro? Yeah. Yeah, I am. There you go. Now I can't see you either. Enjoy. Enjoy molding into the abyss. Anyways, so he's saying that he is not cringe, and he is based in red pilled, that the investigation was biased on behalf of the FBI, and he has corroborating evidence for that, that it erodes the public's confidence when the DOJ does not, when they fail to conduct themselves in a non-biased manner, that it wasn't just him, but he was working with like legacy veteran investigators and prosecutors who they found the findings sobering. So if it's shocking to a 30-year veteran or a 20-year veteran of the DOJ, then that is something of note. He can only discuss the investigation, which is why I could never be a public figure, because I would just blabbermouth like a motherfucker. That he's good faith, and he's telling anybody who says that he's biased to go fuck themselves. That the findings are serious and not cringe. That they were hampered by the COVID logistics, which he does bring up because DC was in shutdown. Then work was done by veteran investigators, again speaking to the fact that he wasn't working with like cringe idiots who are partisan hacks. He was working with veteran investigators and prosecutors. That the rule of law should apply to all, which tells me that he's an idealist. The FBI was able to charge a felony that they found serious because, again, if that was like a leftoid in my chat, it might have been Nema or whatever. But you can say that the results of, the prosecution of the person whose weed was planted on them resulted in a non-conviction or community service anyways. So as a result, like, you shouldn't complain. But the point is that a law enforcement officer planting weed on somebody is fucking serious. So an FBI agent photoshopping an email in order to secure a warrant for investigation is fucking serious. Another thing that he said is that the FISA warrant, in violation of policy, omitted relevant and exculpatory information of Page. And that Strzok, he didn't mention Strzok by name, but he said that Strzok, senior leaders at the FBI, I'm reading between the lines here, and senior leaders at the FBI ignored the exculpatory information in order to continue the investigation. That's fucking serious. And the reason why that's serious is because if you got information from the Steele Dossier that you knew was largely bullshit, you based your investigation off the Steele Dossier, you target somebody who is supposed to be a part of the information based off of the Steele Dossier, you find exculpatory information, and you don't have any other leads to pursue, then at that point, it would kind of be expected that you turn over the information and you end the investigation. And instead, what we're being told is that senior leadership at the FBI ignored the exculpatory information and continued the investigation. And the only motivation that I can think of is to continue to give a black eye to the Trump presidential campaign. Because if they said, hey guys, we did the investigation, we didn't find anything, and we're closing up shop, that would be viewed as an exoneration of the Trump campaign and therefore would do less damage to him in the polls. So when the head of that investigation, Peter Strzok, basically says, oh yeah, we're going to prevent Trump from winning, you have to assume that it's politically motivated. Now, you can say, Connor, you're making a presumption without evidence. You're right, but why would you keep an investigation open if you already had exculpatory information and no other leads? Well, Stinkfist 570, so this actually speaks directly to what I'm saying. Would still want to see evidence of all of what Durham is saying. Most of Durham's answers are based on his opinion. Okay, so what he's saying, he's a seasoned investigator, is that they started an investigation based off of the Steele Dossier. This is not in contention. The Steele Dossier was paid for by the Clinton campaign through Fusion GPS, and it was based off of Danchenko, or whatever the fuck. Then they targeted somebody, and they used that warrant in order to see whether or not they were a foreign operative. They found out that that person was not a foreign operative, and they continued the investigation in spite of that fact and continued monitoring that person. So, I want you to, you tell me, right? What would be the motivation behind that? So, Float U32, have you ever considered that the Senate report was correct and that Trump just appointed a special counsel to go after conspiracies that proved to be completely insane? No, Float U32. And the only reason why I'm not yelling at you is because I know you're a fucking regular. What the fuck did I just say? Did I just say that the Steele Dossier was largely based off of bullshit? Did I say that they ignored exculpatory evidence? Did I say that they conducted an investigation past its fucking purview? Did I say that Mr. Durham, as far as I can tell, is a seasoned investigator with 40 years of fucking experience, largely in investigations that wouldn't make him politically biased? I said all that. So if you have counters to the individual sub-examples that I just brought up, then you can counter my sub-examples. We're pulling a Twitch and YouTube political moment here. Here's the broader argument. The broader argument is that the FBI is biased and went after Trump based off of shitty information. And when they couldn't corroborate the shitty information, they continued the investigation for political motivations. That's the broad claim. Now, I brought you 4 sub-arguments. So you can disagree with the broad claim, but can you disagree intelligently with the 4 sub-arguments that I just brought to you? That's my question to you. And if you can't, then you're operating from a pre-existing bias, not me. Colonel Angus says Mueller was an important actor in the conspiracy and wasn't prosecuted by Durham. No. No, you fool. If there's an just because you have shitty information doesn't mean that you don't investigate the information. Like if somebody says, hey, Ray up the fucking block, he's slinging fucking dope. I see cars going by his house all the time, and he walks around with a bunch of cash. I think he's a drug dealer. And then I go to Ray's house and I see that he's actually an ice cream man and he's slanging ice cream left, right, and center, and he takes cash because he doesn't know how to work an iPad. Then it's perfectly fine for me to conduct an investigation. But once I find exculpatory information, I have to disclose that exculpatory information. If I continue to investigate Ray in order to fuck him over because he's running for city council, I'm an asshole. Okay? Like I might not have done anything illegal, but I'm still a fucking asshole. So I don't know, why do you want to fuck over Ray? Because obviously we're talking about Trump, but still. Isn't Foreign Ops CIA cope? I'm retarded. Isn't Foreign Operations CIA scope? Yeah, sure. There's no problem with them conducting there's no problem with them conducting the investigation. I have no problems with them conducting the investigation. I'm just saying when they have exculpatory information, they have to disclose it. Stinkfist 570, you say that's a big claim. So what I'm telling you is that there's a logic here, and something is either true or not true. I am not going to spend the time. I'll just be fully honest. I am not going to spend the time in order to find the FBI policy that says that you have to post exculpatory information. I am not going to take the time in order to look at, I'm trying to think of like another example, to look up like Page and see if, what's that? Okay, Stinkfist 570. Big claims require big evidence. That's all you're saying. Okay, do you disagree with any of the sub-arguments? Okay, because like we said, you can disagree with the large argument. That's totally fine. Do you disagree with the sub-arguments? And I'm going to move on, and I'm not going to get one guide. And that kid's voice scared the shit out of me. Good old Uncle Mom. That's the dono sound. Okay, so Stinkfist, that's okay. If you don't have sub-argument counterpoints, that's fine. You can come to a different conclusion based off of the analysis of the same variables. I have no problems with people coming to different conclusions based off of like the analysis of sub-variables. But what I'm saying is, if you're looking at these sub-variables and I'm arriving at a different conclusion, then don't treat me like a fucking idiot just because I'm arriving at a different conclusion based off of the sub-variables. And if you disagree with my conclusion, you have to point out the variable that I'm missing that I need in order to shore up my argument. If you can't point it out, I just feel like you're arguing in bad faith. Not you specifically. I'm talking more about Twitch and YouTube politics. Yeah, easy, cowboy. No, I'm not coming after you. I'm saying in general, if I was in a Twitch and YouTube political debate, I would expect somebody who doesn't like my conclusions to be able to identify the holes in my argument. Here's the dono link again. That way we can scare. If you want to scare old Uncle Mom, he's currently driving down a dark black road. And if you want to scare the shit out of him, then give me a dono through that link so it scares him, because children speaking in your ear while you're driving in the country in a dark black road is terrifying, especially if you don't have children. So go ahead and scare him again. Let's continue. Oh, actually, let's make sure that I finished all my Durham notes. So he's claiming that the FBI found exculpatory information, but they omitted it from the continuing FISA applications. They said that they knew that Page was not a knowing agent of a foreign intelligence operation, which is the requirement for a FISA organization. So they ignored that to continue the investigation. The FBI accepted and used the Steele Dossier despite knowing it was from Clinton and never corroborating the subline information. So, example time. If I'm going to Ray's house to see whether or not he's a drug dealer or an ice cream salesman, and, I don't know, Dookie up the fucking road is the person who told Howard, because I was going to go with Jamal, but that's racist, told Howard that he was a drug dealer. I should go to Dookie in order to find out what he knows. The FBI never did that. And while I can't mind read, I think the implication is that if Dookie says that, I forget my original person's name, but if Dookie says that the ice cream man is a fucking drug dealer, and I never go talk to Dookie, I just investigate the ice cream man, and then I find exculpatory information for the ice cream man, and I ignore it, then at that point, it doesn't seem like I'm actually worried about whether or not the ice cream man is selling drugs. It just seems like I'm trying to fuck over the ice cream man. So, can somebody remind me, was it Ray Ray? Was that my ice cream salesman? Somebody remind me. So, y'all, yeah, the logic follows even if you're not extracting the same thing. You gonna support the white facial hair like Durham here? Yeah, of course. Always. I love my white hair. FBI can operate on foreign soil, but it means for domestic crime, CIA has mandate not to operate within the U.S. True. Sounds like the FBI are making a lot of independent decisions. True. But, I mean, we want them. We want them to make independent decisions. We want them to have flexibility and intelligence and reading comprehension and all that kind of stuff. We want that in our investigators. It just might have been improperly targeted and biased. And by the way, this doesn't mean that Trump's not a shitbag. Trump's a total fucking shitbag. I'm just trying to tell you that there's something here. This is the reason that the FBI is charged with nailing double agents in the CIA, though the CIA can provide that information to the FBI. True. Not able to explain in much more detail within 200 characters. Cool. The criminals in the FBI used that warrant to spy on the entire Trump campaign and found no connection to Russia. I mean, that's relatively fucking true. Dookie and Ray Ray. Yep, we're talking about inner city hood drug dealing. What was the mission of Durham to expose massive government malfeasance into investigating Trump, and what did he produce? Nothing? Flo, you are being so fucking biased right now, and it's actually kind of making me sad because I've seen you in my chat a dozen times. You are putting the framing that there was massive government malfeasance and it's Durham's job to go find it and expose it, and yet we have an FBI agent photoshopping the information, which he got charged and convicted for. That by itself is like catching a fucking cop planting weed on a fucking kid. That's a big deal. You can pretend it's not a big deal, but if I was talking to you about catching a cop on camera planting weed on a kid, you would absolutely give a fuck, especially if you're a lefty or a progressive. And I'm sorry, I'm getting one guide. I'll get back into the content momentarily, but let's wrap this up. I already told you. The Trump investigation was predicated based off of the Australian saying that a Trump representative knew that the Russians had thousands of emails that would be embarrassing to Hillary Clinton's campaign, and as a result, they opened the investigation. Within a couple of days, they received the Steele Dossier. They likely knew that it was from the Clinton campaign. They didn't care. They used it as information in order to get the FISA documentation. Once they got the FISA documentation, they got exculpatory evidence in reference to their target page. They, as the FBI, not the Jews, Jesus. They ignored the exculpatory information in order to continue the investigation. And on top of that, Peter Strzok and higher FBI officials knocked down any objections to them continuing the investigation, and also were caught in text messages saying that they were going to fuck over Trump out of the election. Like, how much more clear does it need to be? This is like when Destiny argues with me and he says, what does he say? He says, like, what would it take for you to be convinced differently? I feel like you're doing the inverse, where there are variables right in front of your face that you're knowingly being obtuse about. So anyways, I got one guide for a bit, but we're going to go on. Do we know who was aware of the reporting evidence that was ignored? Yeah, Peter Strzok. He was in charge of Crossfire Hurricane. He was the guy who was texting his mistress that he was going to get Trump out of office. So yeah, there's corroborating information saying that they were fucking biased. What do you want from me? It doesn't get more clear than that. My main issue is that a lot of the information was never made public till we received special prosecutor reports. We should be able to hear this shit as it's happening, or at least within reasonable time frame. I don't agree at all. Investigations should be able to continue as investigations. You don't want to spook your targets by disclosing information to the public. Do you want them to be making independent decisions, though? They are not elected? Yeah, we want them to make independent decisions. No, but Durham literally was appointed to investigate Hillary Clinton and produce nothing? I'm going to start using the N-word. I'm going to start using the N-word with an A. Stop one guy in me. Now. You're being obtuse.
Okay, AZ vocal local, you say, wait, what one was this? After you say zzz, pay attention, rewind, bitch. I'm not here to fucking explain the whole thing to you again. They, as in people like the pineapple on pizza, least favorite ethnic group. I'm a part of that ethnic group. I'm a big fan of pineapple, chicken, and jalapenos on pizza. I'm convinced the communists over on Twitch are intentionally bad faith. It might be. Yeah, the Steele Dossier was a garbage starting point that many conservatives still can't let go of to this day. What are you talking about? So did Durham catch Hillary Obama, or did he catch no one? That wasn't the scope of his investigation. Float, what are you doing to me, bro? You're fucking hurting me. You must be dull. Twitch doesn't have rewind? Then it sounds like you're on the wrong platform, you fucking retard. On one hand, I like Connor's angry and spice. On the other hand, we never finished this video with this one guy. True. All right, let's move on. Although, we've watched 27 minutes so far, which isn't bad. All right. Be racist, Connor? Ninja. Nice. I'll find you first, bitch. All right, let's move on.
Thank you, Mr. Durham. We will now proceed under the 5-minute rule for questions. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Louisiana,
Typing
Mr.
counterpoints.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Durham, for being here today. This is much anticipated. We have lots of questions for you. I'll try to set the table here at the outset from 20,000 feet. The American people rely on the FBI to abide by its guiding principles, and you know what those are: fidelity, bravery, and integrity. And we rely upon them to uphold the Constitution and protect the American people. Americans deserve and expect from our premier law enforcement agency to apply justice blindly, and that is without political bias or ulterior motives. However, your report now famously states, and here's the big quote, based on the review of Crossfire Hurricane and related intelligence activities, you concluded that the DOJ and FBI...
No, I am not going to fast forward through the Democrats' grandstanding because it's pertinent to what I want to do. Connor, I wonder if Kick would be a good platform for you in addition to possibly Rumble. Yeah, we'll do it, but yeah. Did Durham find the moment the Clinton campaign framed Trump? Float, dude. I just told you that the Steele Dossier was paid opposition research by the Clinton campaign. Address that, or next question from you, if it's another thing where like Clinton wasn't indicted based off of it, I'm going to mute you, which makes me sad because I'm pretty sure that you've been in my chat for fucking ever. But deal with this fact. The Steele Dossier was opposition research that largely was the support for the FISA warrant, and it was based off of the testimony of Danchenko, a Russian double agent. This is corroborated through what we are listening to right now. If you don't deal with that fact, I can't help you, and you're just being obtuse to be obtuse.
FBI failed to uphold their important mission of strict fidelity to the law. There's no other way to put this. The report illustrates egregious actions on behalf of the FBI that have further eroded faith in our institutions. Mr. Durham, in your report, and again here today, you said that your findings and conclusions are sobering.
Float, this makes me sad, but I'm muting you.
Means? Why do you say sobering?
Well, let me give you some real-life views on that. I have had any number of FBI agents who I've worked with over the years. Some of them are retired, some are still in place, who have come to me and apologized for the manner in which that investigation was undertaken. I take that seriously. These are good, hardworking, the majority of people in the FBI, decent human beings who swear under their oaths to abide by the law and the like. And I think that exemplifies of the concern here. There are investigations.
Thank you, Beckett of Crabs. Thank you for the raid. And everybody who's coming over from Beckett, go ahead, follow, like, share, subscribe, give me money, all that kind of stuff. I'll go ahead and post my dono in. I'm going to visit my mother, who has a little bit of cancer. She just went through a lumpectomy. I'm driving down to South Florida in order to see her. I need about $80 for extra gas and a little bit extra groceries because I don't want to eat spaghetti all week. So if you do have money, I will appreciate the donations. We are breaking down the Durham report, and we're going to go ahead and keep going on.
Investigative activities undertaken or not undertaken here, which raise real concerns about whether or not the law was followed, the policies in place, the FBI were followed.
You wrote in your report, quote, based on the evidence gathered in the multiple exhaustive and costly federal investigations of these matters, including the instant investigation, neither U.S. law enforcement nor the intelligence community appears to have possessed any actual evidence of collusion in their holdings at the commencement of the Crossfire investigation. To date, has any evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia ever been uncovered?
I mean, there is information, obviously, in the report that was prepared by Director Mueller and whatnot. But as to collusion or conspiracy, I'm not aware of any.
And let me stop you. When the FBI opened Crossfire Hurricane, that's the issue at hand, it did not have any information that anyone in the Trump campaign had ever been in contact with Russian intelligence officials. Isn't that right?
As we wrote in the report, we talked to the director of the CIA, the deputy director of the CIA, the director of NSA, and people within the FBI, and there was no such information that they had in their holdings at the time they opened Crossfire Hurricane.
And you detail, I'm going to go quickly here, I run out of time. You detail how FBI personnel working on FISA applications violated protocols. They were cavalier at best, as you said in your own words, towards accuracy and completeness. Senior FBI personnel displayed a serious lack of analytical rigor towards information.
God, I'm just going to keep getting one guide, aren't I? Fucking Twitch chat. All right, I hope you guys are enjoying the fucking seething, but I'll read this for your benefit. YOLO Boingen stuff. A rogue group of FBI officers acted outside of the scope of their duty, led by the same person who led the failed investigation of HRC's emails using false information produced by HRC to target her political opponent. Who would need to fail at their duty in the chain of command to let this slide? In the whole department? Is this the whole department? No. It's not the whole department. It is Peter Strzok and it is Bob Mueller. These people have names. They have addresses. We're talking about them right now. You are failing to pay attention to the conversation. It is not my fault, and I shouldn't have to fucking handhold you if I explain how what they did is fucked up repeatedly. I shouldn't have to explain it to you over and over and over again. You keep saying, where is the information? And I keep telling you the information, and you keep being obtuse about the information. That is not my fault. That is your fault. Either you have a listening comprehension issue, or you are so biased that you cannot accept the information that I'm telling you. You do not have to make the same inferences that I am making. You do not have to say that this necessarily proves that there's institutional bias or whatever. They were just doing their jobs, whatever. But the facts disagree with you. So either deal with the facts or shut the fuck up. Ugh. Yeah, I had to know that Twitch chat. Yeah, this is why YouTube chat's my favorite chat, because Twitch chat is. Here's a dono link if you don't want to get muted. Jesus Christ.
Information that they received, especially information received from politically affiliated persons or entities. And you said, quote, a significant reliance on investigative leads provided or funded by Trump's political opponents were relied upon here. Among the most alarming things that you referred to in the report is the impact of confirmation bias. And you said in your report, page 303, that's defined as, or it stands for, the general proposition that there is a common human tendency, mostly unintentional, for people to accept information and evidence that is consistent with what they believe to be true.
What happened in trial again? They secured a felony conviction against the fucking FBI agent who faked evidence. So, you know, if you want to say overall, they only got one guy, that is still bad. If I took one police officer who planted one set of drugs on one teenager, you wouldn't say, whoops, no big deal. You wouldn't say that. Also, if the supervisor was like, hey, let's plant drugs on the ice cream man, you wouldn't be like, oh, no big deal. But that's what you're doing right now, and it's sad.
True. But, sir, here, this wasn't innocent, unintentional human tendency, was it? It was overt political bias, was it not? Peter Strzok, for example.
There are some individuals who clearly expressed a personal bias. It's difficult to get into somebody else's head to see whether they knew it.
Unless we have their emails, right? And Peter Strzok, for example, he had pronounced hostile feelings towards President Trump. Everybody knows that. Everybody in the country knows it. So he was in charge of this. He was the Deputy Assistant Director of Counterintelligence, officially opened the investigation at the direction of Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe. He said horrible things about President Trump and all of his supporters, by the way. How could we say he did not have political bias?
Yeah, I know that it clearly reflects a personal bias that he had. I'll leave it to others and the facts that are set out in the reports, whether that's political bias, personal bias, but there's clearly bias.
What we know now is the FBI and the DOJ have been turned into activated political weapons against citizens and even a former president because of their opposing viewpoints, sir. They failed to follow protocols in 2016, and you've suggested new protocols may somehow be affixed to this. How can the American people have confidence that if they didn't follow protocols in 2016, that they will new protocols?
And I think that's why I said that in the opening remarks, this is not an easy fix. I mean, it's going to take time to rebuild the public's confidence in the institution. The changes of the forms they have made are certainly changes that are going to guard to some extent against the repeat of what happened in Crossfire Hurricane.
I'm out of time. Yield back.
Gentlemen, yield.
Okay. So for those of y'all saying that Durham is a hack, a partisan hack, He had the perfect opportunity to throw Peter Strzok under the bus, and he didn't. He said, members at the FBI are competent, intelligent, well-intended, good-meaning, career professionals who basically got caught up in a system failure and who continued that, and who even apologized to me personally through our investigations, saying that they fucked up in the way that they conducted this investigation, which, by the way, is something that fucking happened. So unless this dude is just literally making shit up out of air, one, he's defending the FBI as an institution and defending a majority of the FBI employees as competent professionals who got caught in a system failure. And then he was given the precise example of the person that had the most obvious bias against Trump. And instead of saying, yeah, fuck that guy, he's hella biased, he said, I'm going to let the facts in the investigation speak for themselves. I'm not going to give you your soundbite. Whereas a partisan hack would absolutely give that fucking sitting congressperson the soundbite. So, anyways. Ugh. Who is he? I don't know who he is. But he was looking for a soundbite and he didn't get it.
Is back. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from New York. Mr. Durham, can you pull that microphone real close so everyone can hear what you say? We appreciate that. Gentleman from New York is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Durham.
YOLO boing and stuff. You have 1 minute to give me a dono or I'm muting you. And the reason why I'm muting you is because you're fucking one guying me and you know you're doing it. Anything done to rectify the system failure? Yeah, as we've already heard fucking multiple times. One, the Inspector General was appointed, and they said that a bunch of bad shit happened, and so they put a bunch of policies in place in order to make sure that this shit didn't happen again. And then Durham, separate, made the same fucking recommendations that they return to these policies and procedures. So yeah, allegedly, according to the government, they put in new policies in order to prevent something like Crossfire Hurricane, with the omitting of information from a FISA warrant, the basing it off of a political campaign's politically funded opposition research, not verifying the information in the opposition research. They put in policies in order to avoid that from happening again. So yes, they did. So you either put fucking $5 in the goddamn till or I'm fucking muting you. Here you go. There's the till. I expect a $4.20 donation sometime in the next fucking minute, or else I'm coming to Twitch chat and I'm gonna fucking mute you because you're being a fucking asshole and you know it.
Your report reads like a defense of the Trump campaign and an attack on Hillary Clinton, because that's exactly what it is. Donald Trump wanted you to investigate the investigators to show the deep state conspiracy, but you never found one. Instead, you gave him and his MAGA Republicans the next best thing, someone else to blame for Donald Trump's problems. That's why you're here today, because the chairman and his colleagues need someone, anyone, to deflect from the mounting evidence of Trump's misconduct. Let me remind you that Donald Trump was federally indicted on 37 counts for mishandling classified information. 37 counts. That's why you're here today, not because of anything that happened in 2016. Ms. Durham, your investigation cost more than $6.5 million, involved the work of dozens of FBI employees and federal prosecutors, some of whom resigned in protest, and took roughly 4 years to complete. Is that correct?
No.
It's not correct.
No, I mean, there were multiple parts of that.
Did it take 4 years to complete?
Correct.
Okay. And with all these resources and all these people you were sent to help you investigate the investigators, you only filed 3 criminal cases. You only brought 2 cases to trial, correct?
Correct.
And you lost all the cases you brought to trial, correct?
Correct.
In fact, 2 juries acquitted your defendants on all charges. And the one conviction that you obtained, the defendant pleaded guilty to a single count and never went to trial, correct?
Correct.
I will note that in that case, the primary investigative steps were all completed by Inspector General Horowitz. Perhaps you were better when it came to your report. From my reading, your report did not make any specific concrete recommendations to improve DOJ or FBI policies or procedures. In fact, your report repeatedly references the recommendations made by Inspector General Horowitz, almost all of which DOJ and FBI have already implemented. Again, your investigation lasted 4 years. 4 years and untold sums of money, and you still obtained only 1 conviction. You did produce a 300-page report, though, and that's given my Republican counterparts plenty of material to spin. Mr. Durham, George Papadopoulos was a foreign policy advisor to the Trump campaign in spring 2016. Isn't that right?
Correct.
And in May 2016, he told an Australian diplomat that the Trump team had received some kind of suggestion from Russia that it could assist this process with the anonymous release of information during the campaign that would be damaging to Secretary Clinton. This is a fact that came out during the Mueller investigation, and your investigation found nothing to dispute this fact, correct?
There's more detail to that in the report.
Did it find anything to dispute this report, to dispute this fact?
No.
Okay. On page 50 of your report, you wrote that on July 28, 2016, FBI headquarters received the Australian information that formed the basis for the opening of Crossfire Hurricane, correct?
Correct.
So this fantasy that some MAGA Republicans have created where the investigation was started for any reason other
RC Amersholt, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate you, buddy. Parasocial love to you and yours. You have a great night.
than a Trump campaign operative bragging to Australian intelligence assets about Russian dirt that would damage Hillary Clinton is not true. And when the FBI received that information, according to your report, it had not just the predication to investigate. There is no question, you wrote, that the FBI had an affirmative obligation to closely examine the Australian information. Isn't that right?
The FBI had an obligation to examine.
So that's correct. So the origin of the investigation was...
Wait, what was he a bitch about?
You wrote that the FBI had an affirmative obligation to closely examine the Australian information. Isn't that right?
The FBI had an obligation to examine.
So that's correct. So the origin of the investigation was not the Steele Dossier. It was not Alpha Bank. It was a Trump aide's loose lips about his campaign's advanced view into a hack that had a profound effect on the 2016 election. That information supplied by the Australian government gave the FBI predication to begin an investigation. I'd like to discuss one more false conclusion about your report that's made its way into the MAGA Republican talking points. Some of my colleagues across the aisle have started calling this the, quote, Russia hoax. It's the theory that Russia did not actually interfere in the 2016 presidential election. That is patently false. In 2017, during the Trump administration, the Director of National Intelligence declassified a report on Russian activity in the 2016 election. You're aware of this report, correct?
Correct.
And in this report, the intelligence community found that, quote, Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered an influence campaign in 2016 aimed at the U.S. presidential election. Russia's goals were to undermine public faith in the U.S. democratic process, denigrate Secretary Clinton, and harm her electability and potential presidency. We further assess Putin and the Russian government developed a clear preference for President-elect Trump, close quote. You did not dispute that Trump ordered an influence campaign to influence the 2016 election in your report, did you?
As I said, there was a real
yes or
Russian
no?
threat.
No. Okay. Special Counsel Mueller indicted 12 Russian intelligence officers in July 2018. Isn't that right?
Correct.
The 12 intelligence officers were indicted for attacking the Clinton campaign. On page 55 of your report, you acknowledge that at a press conference in 2016, Donald Trump on camera said, Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And 2 years later at the Helsinki summit, Trump told the press that he believed Russian President Putin over his own intelligence officials when he told them Russia did not interfere during the 2016 elections season. I see my time's expired. I yield back.
Okay. This is, let's break this down for Twitch and YouTube politics. Did you watch Gates yet? No, we haven't. So let's break down Nadler's second thing. So Nadler gets time again, and he says, you're cringe. Your investigation is cringe. Do you agree that you're cringe? And Durham says, no. And he's like, well, your investigation did take 4 years, right? And he's like, yes. So what he did rhetorically is which by the way, this is why they're a bunch of slippery fucking lawyers, right? What he did is he baked in 5 different assumptions into a single string of sentences, and he said, do you agree? Trying to get Durham, if he wasn't paying attention, to agree to the entire series of, basically gish-galloped answers. And Durham was smart enough and attentive enough in order to notice that he asked him whether or not the investigation took 4 years. So he said, no, fuck you. 80% of what you said is wrong. 20% of it is right. And then he's like, well, is the 20% right? And he's like, yeah. So for me, this is like you're arguing in bad faith because you're not actually trying to determine whether or not the facts that are being presented by Durham are true. What you're trying to do is optically own fucking Durham. That way you can dismiss the entire affair. But let's get into the optic owns because there actually is some good meat in here. So let's get rid of that one. You only convicted one person, correct? By the way, this is the equivalent of, it was a felony. This would be the equivalent of a police officer planting drugs on a suspect. This FBI agent photoshopped email documentation as a part of a warrants process in order to support the warrant. He faked evidence. That is a huge fucking deal. Y'all can act like it's not a fucking big deal, but I guarantee you if we were talking about fucking Ray and Pookie and all those motherfuckers on the block, you would give a fuck. So the fact that you don't give a fuck when it's the highest halls of government is fucking cringe and a double standard, and you're being obtuse. Then he says, you didn't even do all the work. Horowitz did all the work. He's basically just undermining Durham, calling him a fucking poser. So he says, you're cringe and you're a poser. That's pretty funny. Then he says, George Papadopoulos, the person who, started this entire series of shenanigans, did he or did he not say that the Russians had a bunch of emails? He did. And that's warranted for the investigation. So he's saying that the Steele dossier was not the impetus for the investigation, but let's face it, one person saying that they heard from another person that Trump heard from the Russians that they had a bunch of emails that were going to fuck over Hillary doesn't say that much. They could have just gone to that Australian guy, gone to the George Papadopoulos and say, hey, are you guys colluding with the Russians? And they could have said no. And based off of their investigative rigor when they went after Hillary Clinton, that would have been enough to close the investigation. But instead of closing the investigation, they instead said, we're going to open up the entire investigation. We're going to target American citizens. And in order to use corroborative information, to use the FISA, which is spying on American citizens, which is, I think, warranted, but should absolutely have a higher threshold, they used the FISA courts, and they used the Steele dossier as supporting documentation, and they didn't vet the information from the Steele dossier. They didn't even try. And when they found out that it was a double agent who supplied all the information, they didn't even try to vet the information except for saying to the double agent, hey, we'll give you money if you can corroborate what you said. To me, confirmation bias is being charitable, but I guess we can be charitable tonight. Then, Nadler says, Russia did interfere in 2016. Durham already said that. Durham, the person that he's badgering, the person that he's calling cringe, the person who he's saying that his investigation is bullshit, the person who he's saying piggybacked off of the work of another person and he's not worth his fucking salt, he already said that Russia was responsible for intel operations against the United States during the 2016 investigation and against Hillary Clinton. He already said that in his deposition. This guy is reading from a talking point sheet. He's trying to give reporters something to write. He doesn't care about actually investigating the matter. He cares about fucking putting on a show. That way reporters have quotes. Which, by the way, some of his Democratic counterparts are also going to do. Russia, if you're listening, I believe you're missing the 30,000 emails. The 30,000 emails, quote, I watched that entire interview with Trump. He was shitposting the entire time for an hour. And he was talking about the private server. And he said, hey, Russia, if you got the 30,000 emails, then, feel free to fucking link them or whatever. And it was a fucking shitpost. Now, maybe it's a real shitpost because Trump's a fucking asshole and an idiot. By the way, none of this is to defend Trump. But I want y'all to understand this. I want y'all in chat to understand this. Just because one person is a shitbag does not mean the person that they're in competition with cannot also be a shitbag. I know that's like a wild idea to some of y'all, where one person is a shitbag, therefore the other person is innocent. But the truth is that two shitbags can exist in the same space at one time, and oftentimes they do. And they can orbit each other like a binary star system of being fucking shitty. Red-headed man. At counterpoints, which was the foundation for the investigation, not the Steele dossier? Then why did they include the Steele dossier for the FISA warrant if they only had the Aussie thing? It's because it would not have been enough in order to obtain the FISA warrant. And why did they ignore exculpatory information when they found it with Page and didn't disclose it per the policy required in order to continue the FISA investigation? So, red-headed man, you could be totally correct. Your statement could be totally correct that the basis of the investigation was this Australian guy overhearing from a Trump staffer that Russia had 30,000 emails, and he thought it was suspicious that an American would know that shit. And that's the basis of the investigation. Then at that point, if that's the basis of the investigation, why use the opposition research in order to obtain the FISA, and why ignore the exculpatory information? And the truth is, I'm not going to accept any of your answers, because the answer is you shouldn't have, and the answer is you should have disclosed the exculpatory information. So good luck with your train of thought.
Witness can respond if he chooses to. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Fry, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are here today to provide transparency, finally, to the American people. 7 years ago, the FBI launched Crossfire Hurricane, the left's brazen attempt to keep Donald Trump out of the White House. This federal investigation, funded by the Hillary Clinton campaign, caused Americans to believe that then-candidate Trump was colluding with Russia in order to win the 2016 presidential election. Mr. Durham has spent 4 years investigating this, 480 witnesses, 6 million pages of documents, 190 subpoenas, and executing 7 search warrants. Less than a month ago, he
What do I think of the censure of Adam Schiff? I haven't gotten there. So if it's a part of this, I don't know. And to be honest, in order to comment on it, I'd have to Google it.
Completed this report that instigated a baseless investigation and launched a partisan attack on President Trump despite having no true justification to do this. That was the FBI. Within 3 days of receiving the information from a diplomat in Australia, the FBI opened a full-fledged investigation into the Trump campaign. So, Mr. Durham, let's get into this. The FBI opened up Crossfire Hurricane without speaking to the people who provided the initial information. Is that true?
That's correct.
The FBI...
I'm going to play that again for the red-headed man.
Opened without speaking a full-fledged investigation into the Trump campaign. So, Mr. Durham, let's get into this. The FBI opened up Crossfire Hurricane without speaking to the people who provided the initial information. Is that true?
That's correct.
The
How in the fuck? Like, I'm okay with opening the investigation. Okay? Let's just get that out of the way. I want you to hear me when I say this. Do not take the emotion or the fact that I am criticizing the FBI and criticizing institutional politicians. Do not take that in order to reflexively disagree with what I'm saying. I want you to listen to the words that I'm saying. It is okay for the FBI to open the investigation. Did you hear that? Now hear the next thing that I'm going to say. If you're going to start an investigation, then speak to the people that are providing you the primary information that is the basis for the investigation. So red-headed man, do you agree that if you're taking information from the Australian diplomat in order to corroborate an investigation into a United States citizen, in order to use the intelligence apparatus to go after them, you should at least speak to the person? I hope the answer is yes. Fargo Lefty, Connor's compromised. Don't listen to him. Interesting. I would like you to... I've summarized it probably a half dozen times. I would like to hear what part of the sub-arguments of the overall argument you disagree with. Ready, go.
FBI opened Crossfire Hurricane on a Sunday, only 3 days after reviewing that information. Is that correct?
That's correct.
No, because it can undermine the investigation. Investigating the information that you have been provided undermines the investigation that you're conducting. You understand that when you conduct an investigation, you're also looking for exculpatory information as well? That an investigator isn't just looking to convict, they're also looking for any information based off of the truth. Do you understand that bad police officers and bad prosecutors exclusively look for information that is going to indict and convict the person that they're going up against, whereas good investigators and good police officers go after information that could potentially be exculpatory to the person involved? It would be normal to use more information. Okay, we're going to move on. Call you on Discord? No. You can call me on Discord at a different time, but we're going to keep reviewing the content. If you want to talk tomorrow, we could talk tomorrow. And let's go ahead and do this. Once again, for the new people in chat, I'm shouting myself out a little bit more than usual because things are a little tight. We need a little bit of money. I am going grocery shopping, and right now we're eating spaghetti and beef for the next 5 days. But we got roughly probably like $65-70 in the till so far. And that will pay for the gasoline, which is about $40 a tank, and I need 2 tanks. And so that'll pay for the gasoline to go see my mother in South Florida, and then make it home. So thank you to the people who have already donated. But if you have additional dollary dues in your till, I am not going to complain if you give it to me, because I'm going to visit my mother after a lumpectomy for her cancer, and so she can hang out with her grandsons. So if you want to help me out with that trip, I would deeply appreciate it.
Ride with me 38. What's today's topic? It's in the title. I double dog dare Destiny to debunk the Durham deposition. So it's the Durham deposition. How many of them you got? CDC, CIA, FBI, what else? We have DHS, Coast Guard, DOD. You're going to have to ask somebody else, but let's move on for now.
Correct. So just think about that for a moment. An investigation, a full investigation into a presidential campaign over a weekend. Mr. Durham, the FBI opened Crossfire Hurricane without interviewing any of the essential witnesses. Is that true?
That's true.
And the FBI also opened up Crossfire Hurricane without using any of the standard analytical tools typically employed to evaluate that evidence. Is that true?
That's true.
So think about that.
Yeah, so redheaded man, you and I can talk later, but you have a 40-year investigator saying that the FBI didn't follow procedure in order to launch the investigation that they would do typically with any other fucking investigation. I don't know what professional credentials you have that would overrule the professional credentials of Mr. Durham. I don't know what you have. So if you're like a 20-year prosecutor who works in the fucking FBI, or you're a lawyer who's worked like 8 years in the field, or you're a lobbyist who rubs elbows with these people, or if you're a member of the Clinton campaign or the Trump campaign who has firsthand knowledge of these events, or if you worked in the Crossfire Hurricane investigation, or if you worked in the Durham report, I am more than happy to listen to whatever the fuck you have to say. But right now, I'm going to listen to the 40-year investigative prosecutorial veteran over what you have to say. And if you want to say that he's biased, I would like you to provide me evidence of his bias.
The FBI never talked to the people who gave them the intelligence information. They never examined their own witnesses. They never interviewed the witnesses. They never corroborated the dossier. Mr. Durham, if the FBI had done these things, if they had done their homework, would it have found that
Fargo Lefty says, Durham, more like Dur-Dumb, you're getting a timeout. You're a fucking child. None, but he can have a different opinion than those people that conduct the information. Okay. We're just gonna ignore stuff. Hey, YOLO Bong and stuff, I see you. You only posted an emoji in my fucking chat, but I fucking see you. Okay? I see you in my chat posting after you didn't give me any fucking money. So you're skating on thin ice, pal. If you fucking one guy me again, we're gonna, and you don't give me any money, we're gonna have fucking problems. So I worked in politics. We've spoken briefly before. Cool. We can talk again.
Its own Russian experts had no information about President Trump being involved with Russian leadership or Russian intelligence officials?
Yes.
IIID, can I get a timeout too? Hand pink waving, face blue smiling, face yeah, you got a timeout. So, oh, you dropped 2 subs? Oh, okay. YOLO Bongan, you can one guy me again. Thank you. But in the future, please use this dono because I need gasoline and groceries. But you're forgiven. You can one guy me again. Thank you kindly.
So then, was there adequate predication for the FBI to open Crossfire Hurricane as a full investigation?
On July 31st, in my view, based on our investigation, there was not a legitimate basis to open as a full investigation. An assessment is something that had to be looked at, gather information, such as interviewing the people who provided the Papadopoulos information, checking their own databases, the databases of other intelligence agencies, and the standard kinds of things that you would do in an investigation like this.
Mr. Durham, I think it's safe to conclude, based on that report and anyone who has read it, that they did not have that adequate basis, as you talked about, to launch this investigation. Let's move on to a second really troubling aspect of your findings. From the report, I gathered that key FBI leaders, all the way at the top, were predisposed to go after candidate Trump. This bias likely affected the conduct of FBI personnel in this investigation. Is that true?
Yes.
Can you describe that for a moment? How did confirmation bias play into this?
Confirmation bias, as was alluded to, has to do with our human tendency to accept things that we already think are true and to reject anything else. In this instance, there are any number of significant red flags that were raised that were simply ignored. If there's evidence that was inconsistent with the narrative, they didn't pay attention to it.
Hey, RC, go to bed. Okay? Armor Cell, you said it was like 4:15 in the fucking morning. I love you parasocially. I appreciate you hanging out in my chat. I want you to hang out in the future, but I also don't want you to die tomorrow. So please, you can watch us tomorrow. We'll post it to Counterpoints Coliseum. It's down in my description on the YouTube channel. So just go to YouTube, go to the description under any video, find my second channel, subscribe to Counterpoints Coliseum, the second channel, and then watch this as a VOD. I don't want you to die tomorrow. I need you to get some sleep. So go to sleep, RC. Counterpoints. Time would be matter as well as possible damage to the electoral system. I mean, yeah, that's of course a consideration. All right. Dono link. Let's go.
They didn't explore it. They didn't take the logical investigative steps that should have been taken.
Let's see how real his bias was. FBI Deputy Assistant Director Peter Strzok drafted and approved the Crossfire Hurricane opening communication.
Is that how fucking high up that guy was?
They didn't explore it. They didn't take the logical investigative steps that should have been taken.
Let's see how real his bias was. FBI Deputy Assistant Director Peter Strzok drafted.
Deputy Assistant fucking Director. Shut the fuck up. Somebody was literally asking, like, who at the FBI would need to who would be involved? Top ranks in FBI. Let's go ahead and check out what the top ranks. What are the highest ranks in the FBI? Director at the top, followed by Deputy Director, Executive Assistant Directors, Assistant Directors, Special Agents in Charge, and Special Agents. So hold on.
Steps that should have been taken.
Let's see how real his bias was. FBI Deputy Assistant Director Peter Strzok drafted.
Deputy Assistant Director. The number 2 at the fucking FBI. Are you shitting my dick right now? I'm getting fucking one guide by assholes in fucking chat, and the number 2 in fucking the FBI was the guy who was saying fuck Trump, he's not getting elected. Are you shitting me? Are you fucking shitting me? Don't fucking one guy me off of bullshit. You want to one guy me? And by the way, I know I'm using one guy too much, but I saw Chud use it and I fucking love it because I love getting distracted by chat and arguing with you fucks. And I like when you basically one guy is when like you're arguing with one person in chat instead of actually continuing the entertainment. But personally, I fucking love it. For me, arguing with chat is part of the entertainment. But you fucking came at me and you said, who would be required in order for this fucking shit to happen? And the number 2 was the fucking guy in charge of this shit? Get the fuck out of here. God damn. Do I have a parasocial relationship with Destiny? Yeah. Sure do. I also have a relatively social relationship with Destiny, but yeah. Yeah, I would say I have a parasocial relationship. I like him, relatively speaking. I think he's a fucking asshole. But I think overall he makes great content. He's an inspiration to Twitch and YouTube political streamers everywhere. His grind is immaculate. Him being able to seduce the many women of the world is impressive, if a little bit degenerate and hedonistic. He's intelligent and wildly rhetorically talented. He's also a fucking asshole. So, yeah. I have a parasocial and social relationship with that guy. Can you bring this fire when dealing with Fabian? Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Anyways, let's continue. So basically, you won't bite the hand that feeds. I bit it, dude. I bit that hand a few times actually. Dusty and I don't see eye to eye. We've had some contentious debates, and we've had some fun. Okay, redheaded man that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. We're talking about whether or not his bias impacted the investigation.
Take my shekels for your based and family build purposes.
Thank you, King. 07s to fucking Anonymous for the $20 dono. Speaking of which, the kid is waking up to me yelling at you guys, so I might yell a little bit less, but I might have to get him a bottle in a minute, and you're just going to have to deal with that. So, like, I don't want to lose half my fucking viewership, but I might have to go get a bottle, so I'm just giving y'all a heads up. All right. Plugging that dono link like my fucking life depends on it, but let's continue.
Drafted and approved the Crossfire Hurricane opening communication. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And in your investigation, your office discovered text messages between Strunk and Lisa Page, who was the special assistant to the FBI Director McCabe, expressing strong bias against candidate Trump.
That's true.
Thank you, Andrew. If that Christian Valeris didn't 07. Fuck you, Tick. And by fuck you, I mean I love you. Wow. You're a fucking king amongst men, Tick. Thank you kindly. 07s. 07s across the fucking board. I'm not fucking moving on until we get some 07s in chat. Andrew, thank you for the fucking dono. Tick, thank you for the fucking dono. I'm not moving on until we get some 07s. Salute these fucking men for helping me out in my time of need. Keep going. We only got 3 in chat. I'm not moving on. We're getting like a dozen. All right. Thank you, Kings, for the salutes. Thank you. RC, go to fucking sleep. Thank you to the donos. Thank you, sincere guys. I'm being dead fucking serious. I am being dead serious. I'm just seeing what the new dono is. Another fucking $50. Okay. This is actually gonna make me cry a little bit. Like I'm tearing up a little bit, and I'm not trying to be no homo. Okay, no homo. But you just put food in my family's mouth, and you helped me go see my mom. I could have survived. Okay. I could have paid my bills. I could have eaten a little bit light. I could have, gotten to South Florida on fumes, and I could have made it back on fumes. But you guys basically just guaranteed that I'm going to make it there back and safe, that we're going to be able to eat okay throughout the week, that I'll be able to not worry about money for the next week. I am going back to work on the 8th. So seriously, 07s to y'all. Sincerely, appreciate the donos. Thank you kindly. Deus Halcyon, I wish I could help you out, bud. If you're watching this right now, you don't have a lot of money. You watching, one, it gives me social clout because you're here. and you're a viewer, and higher the viewers, more people take you seriously. 2, you're giving me ad revenue because basically as you watch on Twitch and YouTube and shit, it racks up the fact that I have people's time and attention, so it gives me ad revenue. And 3, we've all been, I think, a lot of the Counterpoint's family is working class or middle class. We've all been in situations where we're just paying bills. So 07 to everyone in the fucking chat, 07 to all the donos, 07 to everybody who's just watching and give us ad revenue. I'm shell-shocked. I appreciate you kindly. I'm just going to post the dono link one more time. I'm kidding. Thank you kindly. Let's continue.
For the record, let me read aloud. This was generated by staff, but this would look like their text messages. On August 18, 2016, Page texted Strzok, "Trump's not going to become president, right? Right?" And Strzok responded by saying, No, he's not. We'll stop it. It's clear that there was no evidence of Russia collusion with the Trump campaign in 2016. The American people deserve the truth, and I'm proud to serve on this committee to uncover these lies that were perpetuated for far too long. With that, Mr. Chairman, with my remaining 30 seconds, I will yield to you.
Okay. So that gentleman is biased. I'm happy he brought up Strzok. And here's the thing. Wait, do you not have paid paternity leave? I'm in sales, so I get salary. So I'm happy to get salary, shit. But I also just streamed a lot, and I posted a lot of YouTube videos while I was on break, and that helped me break even. So basically, YouTube replaced my commission for the time that I was gone, and also I had a very kind donor. Hell's Reach, if you'll notice on the YouTube, on the Warhammer 40,000 side, Hell's Reach is not algorithmically popular. I knew that before I started making it. But I had a community member who was so interested in that project that they gave me a small fortune to create the Hell's Reach series. And so I'm creating that as a piece of art for them. And they basically, between them and YouTube revenue and live stream donos, I was able to make it, and it's just been a tight week. So no, seriously, 07, thank you kindly. Y'all have made my week. It's fantastic. Then, could we get some centrist politicians for fuck's sake? Yeah, true. How fucking hard would it have been for this guy to bring up that Peter Strzok and a legal aid to a different deputy director, which, by the way, if the legal aid to a different director is also shit talking about how they don't want Trump, that kind of tells me the culture that they're building, that as institutionalists, they don't want Trump. Whether or not that director gives a shit about Trump, I don't fucking know. But I'll tell you that how many deputy assistant directors does the FBI have? Let's check that out. How many deputy assistant directors at the FBI? There are 11. There are 11 assistant directors. And I don't know about you, 11 is a healthy chunk of change. Like, I think there's enough diversity within like a dozen people that there could be a diverse range of opinions. So I'm not going to like go totally overboard. But at the same time, like, you got to understand that there's probably people who are boys who rub elbows, drink beers, they know each other's families, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, so to pretend that like there isn't some level of institutional bias, I think is shitty. And then I'll move on in a second. But basically, this guy saying like there was no collusion. It's like, okay, there's no collusion. But at the same time, Russia's assholes and Trump are assholes. So that's partially our fault as the American electorate because we elect these guys.
See the chairman yield back. We'll wait for my time. We'll now recognize the gentlelady from California.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Durham, for being here this morning. The ranking member explored an item that I wanted to explore with you, which is based on the information provided to the U.S. government by Australia that a campaign aide had told one of their diplomats that the Russians
She's a little dry, so I'm going to take this opportunity to go grab a bottle. I'll be right back.
Emails that, and this is a quote from your report, as an initial matter, there's no question the FBI had an affirmative obligation to closely examine the Australian information. So that's in your report. And I think the issue might be preliminary versus full, because you agree that there was an obligation to look at it based on that. Is that correct? That's what you say.
When you say based on that, some of the premises of the question are inaccurate. Papadopoulos did not tell.
No, the question is, do you disavow what you said in your report? That you had an affirmative obligation, the FBI, to look at that?
The answer to that question, but they had to look at it, yes.
All right. I want to take a look at some of the other things that I didn't find in your report. In looking at the FBI's behavior, did you find any evidence that the FBI was taking a look at the hacking of the Democratic National Committee and their investigation of that? And if so, where is that in your report?
That was outside the scope of what I was asked to do.
And in the Mueller report, he found that the campaign manager, Mr. Manafort, was giving inside information, private polling data to the Russians, that there was a meeting in Trump Tower with the president's son-in-law and his son, where the Russians had promised they had dirt, and the email from the president's son was something to the effect of, "So we love it." Did the FBI look at that? Did you examine that? And if so, where's that in your report?
That is not something I was asked to look at, and we didn't look at that.
I'm wondering, did you take a look at how the FBI evaluated the alleged ties to Alpha Bank? Did you hire cyber experts to actually take a look at those potential or alleged ties?
Yes. Well, I didn't hire them. They were FBI experts.
And where's that in your report?
I can't, it's in there. I can find the page. My colleagues can find the page, but there's an entire section on Alpha Bank, the white papers and the data that were provided by Mr. Sussman to the FBI, and then the subsequent
No, but my question was, did you take a look, did you hire experts to evaluate the FBI's evaluation?
I did not hire experts to
Let me ask
examine what the experts said, no.
Let me ask another question. I thought it was down a rabbit's hole, but you and Attorney General Barr went to Italy to take a look at some allegation about foreign servers.
Red-headed man says I should go back and watch, so I'm sorry, guys, but I am going to rewind a little bit. Because I have a feeling she's actually acting in good faith, so let's listen.
Based on the information provided to the U.S. government by Australia, that a campaign aide had told one of their diplomats that the Russians had dirt on Clinton in the form of thousands of emails that, and this is a quote from your report, as an initial matter, there's no question the FBI had an affirmative obligation to closely examine the Australian information. So that's in your report. And I think the issue might be preliminary versus full, because you agree that there was an obligation to look at it based on that. Is that correct? That's what you say.
When you say based on that, some of the premises of the question are inaccurate. Papadopoulos did not tell.
No, the question is, do you disavow what you said in your report? That you had an affirmative obligation, the FBI, to look at that?
The answer to that question, but they had to look at it, yes.
All right. I want to take a look at some of the other things.
Hold on. So, red-headed man, unfortunately, you've kind of posted something on there. He's saying that Papadopoulos never said that. So, what information does he have? Like, I would be interested. Isn't that one of your points? They had to investigate, but how in-depth is the difference? You and I will talk in VC. Because it's not a question of whether or not they did it. It's what they based the FISA application on and whether or not they ignored exculpatory evidence. Also, if the FBI, if Papadopoulos if the Australian agent, foreign service agent or whatever, says Papadopoulos said this, and then Papadopoulos said that they didn't say that, and then on top of that, you know, there's some kind of corroborative information like that Australian person was not even in Washington, D.C. at the time, then that would say that the entire investigation was based off of bullshit. So basically, I would say I would be super curious if I was a member of Congress. My follow-up question would be, you said Papadopoulos didn't say that. What are you basing that off of? That would be my next question of inquiry. And by the way, Mr. Girl would absolutely fucking love this because that was a beautiful quest statement. Red-headed man, you'd probably have to rewind the VOD. So just check it out on Counterpoints Coliseum. I'll tell you later. And we can VC about it at some point.
I didn't find in your report. In looking at the FBI's behavior, did you find any evidence that the FBI was taking a look at the hacking of the Democratic National Committee and their investigation of that? And if so, where is that in your report?
That was outside the scope of what I was asked to do.
And in the Mueller report, he found that the campaign manager, Mr. Manafort, was giving inside information, private polling data to the Russians, that there was a meeting in Trump Tower with the president's son-in-law and his son, where the Russians had promised they had dirt, and the email from the president's son was something to the effect of, "So we love it." Did the FBI look at that? Did you examine that? And if so, where's that in your report?
That is not something I was asked to look at, and we didn't look at that.
I'm wondering, did you take a look at how the FBI evaluated the alleged ties to Alpha Bank? Did you hire cyber experts to actually take a look at those potential or alleged ties?
Yes. Well, I didn't hire them. They were FBI experts.
And where's that in your report?
I can't, it's in there. I can find the page. My colleagues can find the page, but there's an entire section on Alpha Bank, the white papers and the data that were provided by Mr. Sussman to the FBI, and then the subsequent
No, but my question was, did you take a look, did you hire experts to evaluate the FBI's evaluation?
I did not hire experts to
Let me ask
examine what the experts said, no.
Yo, so, all right. Okay, redheaded man, you're saying these questions are important. I don't know why. So she's asking about things that are outside of her investigative scope. So his maybe this is a foreign concept, but I'll explain it. Investigative scope involves the target of the investigation. So the target of the investigation for the Mueller report, or the Mueller, whatever the fuck you want to call it, is Trump. So it's his job as the investigator to go into this situation and corroborate all the information that's available and investigate it to the utmost of his ability, and then suggest, prosecutions as needed, and et cetera, et cetera. That's his job. She's effectively asking him, did you corroborate Mueller's work? But that's not his job. His job is to see whether or not Strzok and Crossfire Hurricane and the other shit was done properly. So she's effectively asking him to investigate things that are outside of his purview. So being like, why didn't you investigate this? And it's like, well, it wasn't my fucking job. It was their job, is a perfectly normal answer. Yeah, Christian Valaris, exactly what you said. Yeah. All right, somebody send Dicky Boy dodos because he's been eating lasagna and pizza rolls and he hasn't been able to take a shit in 3 days. So somebody send him donations for somebody send him donations for poop laxatives.
Let me ask another question. I thought it was down a rabbit's hole, but you and Attorney General Barr went to Italy to take a look at some allegation about foreign servers, and Italian officials gave you evidence that they said linked Donald Trump to certain financial crimes. Did the Attorney General ask you to investigate that matter that the Italians referred to you? And if so, did you take any investigative steps, and did you file charges, or if not, did you file a declination memo for a decision not to charge in this case?
The question is outside the scope of what I think I'm authorized to talk about. It's not part of the report. I can tell you this, that investigative steps were taken, grand jury subpoenas were issued, and it came to nothing.
You fucking bitch. You fucking asshole. Do you not understand what she just did? Like, I rescind the asking in good faith. Hey, while you were traveling with Attorney General Barr and you found out that Trump may have committed crimes, did you launch your own investigation into Trump? The answer is obviously no. That's not his assigned case. And he says, no, we referred it to other people. So, as a quest statement, I have to presume that she's trying to paint the picture that Durham is biased for Trump, whereas all he did was follow his job as best he can. This is political optical bullshit. And by the way, like, I'm not saying like Republicans aren't engaging in political optical bullshit. I'm just saying this is particularly egregious.
I'd like to yield the balance of my time to my colleague from California, Mr. Schiff.
Mr. Durham, DOJ policy provides that you don't speak about a pending investigation, and yet you did, didn't you?
I'm not exactly sure what
when the Inspector General issued a report saying that the investigation was properly predicated, you spoke out in violation of Department of Justice policy to criticize the Inspector General's conclusions, didn't you?
I issued a public statement. I didn't do it anonymously. I didn't do it through third persons.
Nonetheless, you violated department policy by issuing a statement while your investigation was ongoing, didn't you?
I don't know that. If I did, then I did, but I was not aware that I was violating some policy.
And you also sought to...
This is a very important part of law enforcement work. So cops can fuck up, and they can fuck up a healthy chunk of the time. And there are so many laws and so many procedures and so many policies that it's actually impossible to track them all. And it seems like they're selectively enforced for political reasons. Like in the small police department that I was using, or that I worked at, if you were a fucking hero and, you know, sunshine flew out of your ass and all that kind of bullshit, then who gives a fuck? Like, if you flex a few policies here or there, if you break a few policy rules, who gives a fuck? Whereas if you're a shitbird and you're on the shit list, they will find a policy that you have violated in order to fuck you over. And this was also my experience in the military as well, because there's so many like laws and UCMJs and, you know, policies and statutes and all that kind of shit. So, there's something in law enforcement called good faith. And what good faith says is, to the utmost of my ability, knowledge, and training, I am conducting my investigations and my services based on what I believe to be correct at the time. So you can be wrong. There can be an old policy you were not aware of, you were never briefed on. There can be a new policy that came out after you conducted the investigation, but the time still technically applied when you were conducting your investigation. There can be policies that you were trained on, but let's face it, you do so much training that you fucking forget. As long as you're acting in good faith, meaning that you're executing your duties to the best of your ability, you have some level of legal protection. So if this guy violated a policy about public disclosures in reference to an investigation, but he did so effectively in order to call out another person who's making a public statement about the same investigation, and he was unaware of the policy, he can be in violation of the policy, but not liable for any kind of like civil or criminal proceedings. So very, very, very based answers. And on top of that, if what this guy said was true, I kind of don't give a fuck. Fuck the policy.
Get the Inspector General to change his conclusion, did you not? When he was concluding that the investigation was properly predicated, did you privately seek to intervene to change that conclusion?
This is outside the scope of the report, but if you want to go there, we asked the Inspector General to take a look at the intelligence that's included in the classified appendix that you looked at, and said that ought to affect portions of his report.
And you thought it was appropriate for you to intervene with an independent investigation by the Inspector General because he was reaching a conclusion you disagreed with. You thought that was appropriate.
That's not, the premise isn't right. The Inspector General circulated a draft memo to a number of agencies and persons. Our group was one of them. We were asked to review that draft and bring to his attention any concerns that we had or disagreements.
And when he refused to change his report, you violated
Mr. Chairman, I
policy.
insist on regular order.
Well, it's not even his time. It's
Oh, fuck Schiff. Fuck Schiff and his shitty fucking ass. Shitty Schiff is right. Holy shit. So what he said, what Durham said, is I was conducting an investigation. You saw the information that made me doubt the public conclusion of the Inspector General. I notified him of the fucking shit. He ignored me. And when asked about whether or not I agreed with his conclusions, I said no. So he's trying to pin him up on a fucking technicality of you're not supposed to publicly say that you disagree with someone. And he's saying, fuck you. I do disagree with that motherfucker. Fuck this guy. Fuck Schiff and his shifty fucking ass. What a fucking retard. What a fucking asshole.
It's Ms. Lofgren's time, so the gentleman yields back to Ms. Lofgren, who's not here, so the time has expired. Mr. Durham, in the summer of 2016, did our government receive intelligence that suggested Secretary Clinton had approved a plan to tie President Trump to Russia?
Yes.
Was that intelligence important enough for Director Brennan to go brief the President of the United States, the Vice President of the United States, the Attorney General of the United States, and the Director of the FBI?
Yes.
And was that intelligence put then into a memorandum, a referral memorandum?
Yes.
And was that memorandum then given to Director Comey and Agent Strzok?
That's who it was addressed to, yes.
Did Director Comey share that memorandum with the FISA court?
I'm sorry,
Did he share that memorandum with the FISA court? Did Director Comey do that?
I'm not aware of that if he did.
Did he share it with the lawyers preparing the FISA application?
Not to my knowledge.
Did he share it with the agents on the case, working the Crossfire Hurricane case?
No.
Didn't share it with the agents on the case. Can you tell the committee what happened when you took that referral memo and shared it with one of those agents, specifically Supervisory Special Agent Number 1?
We interviewed the first supervisor of the Crossfire investigation.
Yo, redheaded man, you're fucking coping. You and I can talk. Why would that be pertinent? If you have a shitty boss, and by the way, this is something that we all face at some point. If you have a shitty boss who's doing shitty and shady shit, and you call it out to his face, and he ignores you, and somebody asks your opinion on it, why wouldn't you tell the truth? If your answer is like, I would tell the lie in order to keep up the appearances of a unified institution, I hate everything about your perspective. Anyways, just for those of you who aren't paying attention, depends on the station that you're in. Yeah, and most people go along to get along. So no offense, but people seeing fucked up shit and then staying quiet when they see that fucked up shit goes public is part of the fucking problem that we're talking about tonight. Anyways, now that my heartburn is going, let's talk about what he just said. So what he's saying is, 6 months before the investigation, the President of the United States, the Attorney General, the head of the FBI, and via memorandum, Peter Strzok and Bob Mueller, I guess, were told that the Hillary Clinton campaign was going to get opposition research saying that Trump was tied to Russia, and then they were going to basically use that to smear the Trump campaign. And then they used the Steele Dossier as the support for the FISA warrants, and they didn't tell any of the agents in charge of the investigation that they were using fucking opposition research as a significant part of their FISA shit. My understanding is that Durham wasn't in on the investigation at the time. Yeah, of course. He wasn't in on the investigation. He was conducting a parallel investigation. He was investigating the investigators. What? Yeah. I don't know what you're saying. Anyways. So the point being, he's fucking shitting on Durham because he publicly disagreed with one of his bosses who he had already privately corrected on the information that he was putting forward. And then, on top of that, we know that the FBI conducted the investigation knowing that the information that they based it off was on opposition research that they didn't corroborate. So for me, it's like, is this enough to criminally indict somebody? Probably not. I mean, for all they knew, the Fusion GPS information could have been accurate. The Steele Dossier could have been accurate. The failure isn't in whether or not they chose to investigate. The failure is in whether or not when they corroborated or failed to corroborate the information, if they acted in good faith. And based off of Peter Strzok's text messages, the answer is fucking no. The answer is no. If they got exculpatory information and they didn't include it, they fucked up. If they based the entire investigation off of the Steele Dossier, they fucked up. If they didn't corroborate the Steele dossier, they fucked up. If they found out that it was a Russian double agent and didn't investigate that, they fucked up. If they offered money to the double agent and asked him to corroborate the dossier that they were using to support the ongoing FISA applications, and they got information that basically they didn't forward to the FISA people, and Dagashenko or Denchenko or whatever the fuck his name is, didn't provide any corroborating information, they fucked up. So, sorry. The facts fucking disagree with you. If you think that this isn't fucking shady, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do for you. But 123, he saying probably sarcastically they should have hired Connor. No, they shouldn't have. I would have taken the hint. I would have shut the fuck up. When Peter Strzok was like, hey, we're going to keep this investigation open, I would have been like, sweet, free overtime. I don't give a shit. I would have been one of the motherfuckers collecting a check. I'd been like, Trump's a fucking asshole. I don't give a fuck. But just because I would have done it does not make it right. God in 4K, fuck.
The operational person. We showed him the intelligence information. He indicated he had never seen it before. He immediately became emotional, got up and left the room.
Okay. And then just to let you guys know, the kid is fussy, he's gassy, he's eating. I'm probably going to wrap up at 1 a.m. my time, which is in 30 minutes. So you guys are giving me heartburn. This is giving me heartburn. We'll continue this because honestly, we were breaking 100. We had like 50 people on YouTube. We had like 45 people on Twitch. So we were breaking like 100 people cross platform, and we obviously got some good donos. So I mean, I'll keep this going. I'll go into next week. If Red-Headed Man wants to come on, we can talk about it for a minute. So, anyways, let's continue.
With his lawyer, spent some time in the hallway, came back.
He was ticked off, wasn't he?
Yes.
He was ticked off because this is something he should have had as an agent on the case. Is important information that the director of the FBI kept from the people doing the investigation.
The information was kept from him.
Who's Charles Dolan?
Charles Dolan is a public relations person here in Washington, D.C. He had prior involvement, professional involvement with the Russian government, representing Russian government interests. He was a person that was associated with Igor Danchenko.
He was also buddies with the Clintons, wasn't he?
He had held positions when President Clinton was president.
In their campaign, advisory to Secretary Clinton's presidential campaign, executive director of the Democrat Governors Association. That's the same Charles Dolan we're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ninja. The Steele dossier wasn't just based on a Russian double agent. It was based off of information provided by somebody who was formerly employed by Hillary Clinton. Ninja. If that's not a conflict of interest to you, I don't know what the fuck is. I don't know what to do for you. I don't know how to help you. How do you have a former employee of Hillary Clinton as the primary source for your ongoing FISA warrant against Trump? And by the way, I'm pretty sure in the next minute or two, they say they never talked to him. Ninja is the N-word without, N-I-G-G-A. So I'm using Ninja as a replacement for N-I-G-G-A, because while I would absolutely use N-I-G-G-A, there are some black folk who would be upset by my presumption of using it, and also YouTube and Twitch, if I used it casually, they might not support my First Amendment rights to use the N-word casually. Thank you, Butters. I appreciate you. But, what else can I do for you? I already know that I muted Float U32. I know that I muted somebody else. Maybe I'll check. Maybe I'll check on their chats in a second. But what else can I do for you? So let's just summarize it again real quick, okay? So, an Australian comes out and says that this guy says that the Trump campaign knows that the Russians have like emails that were stolen from Hillary Clinton. They don't talk to the Australian guy. They just launch an investigation. They take opposition research from the Clinton campaign. When they find out that it's largely bullshit, they continue to use it. They ask Danchenko, the Russian double agent, to corroborate it. He never does. They find out that Dolan, or whatever the fuck his name is a former Clinton employee. That doesn't affect their investigation at all. Then, when they get exculpatory information on their targets, they continue the investigation over the objection of some of the agents. And the agents who were in charge of the investigation never knew that the primary support for their FISA warrants was Clinton opposition research. Yeah. What else can I do for you to point out bias? What else can I do for you besides show a text message from the deputy assistant director of the FBI, the number 2 position, technically number 2 amongst a peer of a dozen people, but the number 2 or number 3 position at the FBI has text messages because he was in charge of the Trump investigation saying, fuck Trump, he's not getting elected. What else can I bring you? I don't know what else to give you.
Wasn't he also a key source for information in the dossier?
He provided some information that was included in the
Ritz-Carlton
dossier,
stuff, the Manafort stuff. In the Crossfire Hurricane investigation and the Mueller investigation, when the FBI interviewed Mr. Dolan, what did he have to say?
To my knowledge, they didn't interview Mr. Dolan.
They didn't interview this guy? Source for the dossier? Key information in the dossier? Buddies with the Clintons? They didn't talk to him?
No, I mean, we report on that because...
Called it. They never talked to the fucking guy. Amazing.
Even Christopher Steele in October 2016 identified Dolan as somebody that might have information.
I find it interesting they didn't talk to him. Were there agents on the case who wanted to talk to Mr. Dolan, Mr. Durham?
Yes.
What happened to analyst number 1? She kept pushing to talk to Mr. Dolan. She was ultimately turned down. What happened to her the day that she was turned down? Said, no, we're not talking to Dolan. What happened to her?
At about the same time, she was assigned to a different project.
They moved her.
Weird. Why the fuck is this in your recommending? I don't know. Maybe you like Warhammer 40K or politics. Somebody pushes to go interview. You think that's not going to affect the investigation? If you have a peer investigator who is asking to speak to a source over and over and over again, and then she gets reassigned, you think that's not going to affect it? Are you fucking shitting me? Like I said, I would have been the guy who would have been like, yes, sir. Let's keep the investigation open. I don't give a fuck. I'm getting overtime. That was a trooper. That was an idealist. That was a soldier. That was someone who believed in the cause. And what was their payment for believing in the cause? They got fucked over. Amazing. Fucking amazing.
They said, we can't have this. We can't have that. We can't be looking into the Clintons' buddy, a key source for the dossier. They reassigned her. And then what did she do?
She memorialized it.
She entered a memo to the file because she said, at some point the inspector general is going to want to know this information. I'm going to make sure it's recorded contemporaneously. She put it in the file. It's crazy. They didn't talk to the key source. They kept key intelligence from the investigators. This is how bad this investigation was. But here's the scary part. I don't think anything has changed. The day your report came out, 5 weeks ago, May 15th, you got a letter, Mr. Durham, addressed to you from the General Counsel at the FBI, Mr. Jason Jones, writes you this 6-page letter, and he says, not to worry, everything is fine. It's all been worked out at the FBI. He even says on page 2, he says, had the reforms implemented by current FBI leadership, summarized below, been in place in 20...
Rejected by you says, it'll be nice to see them all indicted. Wow. You're fucking naive or sarcastic.
2016, failures detailed in your report never would have happened, and he underlines it. He said this would never happen because of the reforms we implemented in 2019 and 2020. And then he says on page 4, one of the specific reforms, he says, FBI executive management has instructed investigations should be run out of the field and not from the headquarters. That statement is not true. 5 weeks ago, the FBI wrote you and said everything has changed when in fact it hasn't, and a statement in there is absolutely false, and we know it's false because 2 weeks ago today, We interviewed Stephen D'Antuono, former head of the Washington field office, Mr. Durham, and here's what he said in his transcript. Head of the Washington field office, when the Trump classified document investigation began, he said, that case was handled differently than I would have expected it to be, than any other cases handled. We learned a lot of stuff from Crossfire Hurricane, that headquarters should not work the investigation. It's supposed to be the field offices. My concern is that the Department of Justice was not following these principles. Nothing is, and that's the thing that scares me the most. Nothing has changed. Mr. Durham, I'm just finished with
So
this.
we gotta take another fucking, we gotta take another point, and we have to take another point and stick it right up people's fucking asses. So some of the Democrats on this panel and some of the people that we've debated on Twitch and YouTube Politics say that the Durham report and the Durham investigation uncovered, part of the indictment of the Durham report and the Durham investigation is that it uncovered nothing new from the Inspector General. And yet, we have the statement from the FBI saying that they would never engage in this practice of reassigning agents from headquarters. And you have the Trump raid, which was pushed back on by the field office. I don't give a fuck. Fuck Trump. Fuck him in his stupid fucking old ass. Fuck him in his orange, bloated, copper-haired, fucking old, dumb, fucking wrinkly ass. I don't give a shit. Fuck him. But to pretend for even an iota of a fucking second that these weren't biased investigations is fucking insane and is contradictory to the facts that you've been presented with tonight that, by the way, have not been contradicted by any of the fucking Democrats on this panel. So we'll see if they have any contradictions. It'll be fucking amazing.
Of Americans now believe there's a double standard at the Justice Department. You know why they believe that?
Because it's
there
true.
is. That has got to change. And I don't think more training, more rules is going to do it. I think we have to fundamentally change the FISA process, and we have to use the appropriations process to limit how American tax dollars are spent at the Department of Justice. I yield back. Gentlelady from Texas is recognized, Ms. Jackson Lee.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You value the independence of a special counsel, do you not?
I do.
In a letter to Attorney General Garland submitting your...
This is amazing, by the way. This whole line of questioning is a failed dunk for like 10 minutes. It's great. Let's check it out.
report, you asked him to allow you to continue investigation unencumbered. You said, we want to thank you and your office for permitting our inquiry to proceed independently without interference, as you assured the members of the Judiciary Committee would be the case during your confirmation hearings to become Attorney General of the United States. You value your special counsel status. So it is accurate that Attorney General Garland let you proceed on your case as you wish. Is that true?
That's true.
And yes or no, it was important to you that as a special counsel, your investigation was supposed to be independent. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Because special counsels and special attorneys are supposed to be independent, right?
Special counsel.
Yes, and independent. They're supposed to be independent. Is that correct?
Special counsel is independent of the Attorney General's office.
Thank you. Why is that the case in your view?
So there can be some confidence on the part of people looking at the investigation that was done, decisions which were made.
Thank you. Special counsels and special attorneys are supposed to be, for the American public, to present the potential of a conflict of interest between the government and a sensitive investigation. By appointing a special counsel and attorney general, is supposed to be finding an unbiased party to do the investigating. This was at a very high level. This was dealing with potential presidential candidates. This was dealing with Russia, collusion, and undermining the very fabric of the United States of America. And they are supposed to leave that person alone, as you commended Attorney General Garland for doing. So, unlike Attorney General Garland, Attorney General Barr was very involved in your investigation, wasn't he?
He was not involved when I became special counsel. Prior to that, I worked under the supervision of the Attorney General and Deputy.
He was very involved, was he not? Let me just bring you to this point. Barr established early on that he was very interested in your investigation. On June 8, 2018, he sent then Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein an unsolicited memo arguing that the Mueller investigation should not be able to force the president to submit to interrogation about obstruction. In his text message sending the memo, Barr wrote that he feels very deeply about some of the issues taking shape in the Mueller matter. How often did you meet with Attorney General Barr in 2019?
Before I was special counsel, maybe, well, with him himself, maybe every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something of that sort.
And then after?
Sometimes more frequently.
And then after?
After it became, I had been appointed special counsel. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that I saw him, but I didn't meet.
Don't worry, Christian Valeris. We'll finish this portion tonight for sure.
With him on
a lot.
Investigation. No, it was not a lot.
How often did you speak or text with the Attorney General? This is during the investigation.
I wouldn't, when I was special counsel or prior to that?
Special counsel, sir.
I don't know how many times I texted with him.
Right. Well, according to now public records, Barr scheduled at least 18 meetings or calls with you between 2019, March, and October 2019. And you and he text messages with each other frequently, didn't you? Text messages.
Yeah, I was appointed as special counsel in October. So before that, yeah, there were probably any number of text messages. After that, I don't know.
Here are some examples. On August 31, 2019, he sent you a message that said, John strongly suggests that you, a lot of interesting things. On February 6, 2020, you text him, sir, just emerging from a skiff. Are you open to a call earlier this morning? On February 14, 2020, Barr texts you, call me when you get a chance. On March 19, 2020, Barr texts, can I call you later? And you responded, most certainly. On March 27, 2020, you sent him the best phone number for you all during the time of being special counsel. And here's an interesting one. On September 24, 2019, the day that the Speaker Pelosi announced a formal impeachment inquiry into President Trump, Attorney General Barr texts you, call me ASAP, and later that day you text back.
Hold on, let's check out the timeline again. Let's check out the words that she's using.
The president to submit to interrogation about obstruction. In his text message sending the memo, Barr wrote that he feels very deeply about some of the issues taking shape in the Mueller matter. How often did you meet with Attorney General Barr in 2019?
Before I was special counsel, maybe, well, with him himself, maybe every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something of that sort.
And then after?
Sometimes more frequently.
And then after?
After it became, I had been appointed special counsel. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that I saw him, but I didn't meet with him on
a lot.
Investigation. No, it was not a lot.
How often did you speak or text with the Attorney General? This is during the investigation.
I wouldn't. When I was special counsel or prior to that?
Special counsel, sir.
I don't know how many times I texted with him.
Right. Well, according to now public records, Barr scheduled at least 18 meetings or calls with you between 2019, March, and October 2019. And you and he text messages with each other frequently, didn't you? Text messages.
Yeah, I was appointed as special counsel in October. So before that, yeah, there were probably any number of text messages. After that, I don't know.
Here are some examples. On August 31, 2019, he sent you a message that said, John strongly suggests that you, a lot of interesting things. On February 6, 2020, you text him, sir, just emerging from a skiff. Are you open to a call earlier this morning? On February 14, 2020, Barr texts you, call me when you get a chance. On March 19, 2020, Barr texts, can I call you later? And you responded, most certainly. On March 27, 2020, you sent him the best phone number for you all during the time of being special counsel. And here's an interesting one. On September 24, 2019, the day that the Speaker Pelosi announced a formal impeachment inquiry into President Trump, Attorney General Barr texts you, call me ASAP, and later that day you text back. You have a minute for a quick call, Durham. What was the purpose of this call, Mr. Durham? Were you discussing the impeachment inquiry?
I never had any conversation with Attorney General Barr about the impeachment inquiry.
Mr. Durham, this is an awful lot of direct interactions with the Attorney General for imposed, supposedly independent counsel prosecutor. During these messages that sound to you like appropriate interactions, do they sound like appropriate interactions between an Attorney General and a prosecutor investigating the administration?
Sure. Before I was appointed special counsel, I worked for the Attorney General of the United States. That's who
But you subsequently became special counsel. I know that.
Right.
You subsequently became. Not only did you interact with the Attorney General frequently, you also regularly engaged with one of his top deputies, Seth Ducharme. What was your relationship with Mr. Ducharme?
Seth Ducharme had been an assistant United States attorney in the Eastern District of New York. He works with one of my sons, we were friends, and he, at the time, was working in the Office of the Attorney General.
It seems that rather than having an independent investigation, there was a lot of interaction between the Attorney General and the special prosecutor, which shows that the Attorney General was actively directed.
Okay, so let's summarize that real quick. The reason why that was such a fucking missed dunk is because a majority of the messages that she's talking about were in 2019 prior to him being appointed to special counsel, and it was his fucking boss. Hey, did you text your boss a lot before you went into a special role? And did you text him 4 or 5 times after you left that role? It's a missed fucking dunk. And this was actually the moment I was watching it. I was befuddled. I was amazed. I was amazed by this. And then MSNBC, what is it? Durham bias. So I went here, and I think it's this one. But basically what happened, didn't I point out to you, overall, throughout this VOD, and if you're watching it earlier, this news article. So this is supposed to be an independent institution that is keeping our powerful people accountable. MSNBC, which obviously leans into its progressive bias, what they do is all those fucking missed dunks and quotes. They just quote the Democrats. Now, to be fair, they do put Durham firing back and telling one of the Democrats to go fuck themselves. But you better believe that if the Democrats had gotten some dunks in, if Durham had folded under pressure, if he had fucked up in his testimony, they would have taken his reputation and stuck it right up his fucking asshole. So the fact that this motherfucker had the balls to go in front of Congress, balls to go in front of the public, has a 40-year reputation as a prosecutor, and was able to go toe-to-toe with these motherfuckers that are trying to fuck him over, and he actually does such a good debate bro job that even in a publication that's slanted against him, they put one of his dunks in, is actually based. So my applause to Durham, and I think we're going to wrap up in a second. So General Balsack, the skiff comment was what blew me away. I don't remember the timestamps, but when you're in a skiff, you are not supposed to access anything outside of the compartmentalized network. Yeah, he said he just left the skiff. General Balsack, I'm pretty sure he said that he just left the skiff. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe he said he was in the skiff. But I don't think you can text in a skiff no matter how important you are. And also, a healthy chunk of those buildings are like anti-signal. Like they're wrapped up pretty tight. At least the ones that I was in were wrapped up pretty tight. So I don't know. I think he said he was leaving a skiff. But you're more than welcome to rewind. I don't remember, to be honest, and I don't think I care that much. Our country is run by stupid people. True. So anyways, we still got 40 to 50 people on YouTube. I appreciate and parasocially love all of you. I got 40 to 50 people on Twitch. Please stay in your seats in the upright and locked position. I'm going to go ahead and raid to somebody else. Again, I want to thank very, 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 very much all of the donos tonight. I'm going to link my link one more time for donations. And basically what's going on this week is things were a little tight. And we were just going to eat spaghetti and meatballs and spaghetti and ground beef for the entire week because that's what our budget was looking like. But thanks to your donations, I will not have to eat just spaghetti. I might even be able to get some, some luxuries like ice cream or broccoli. So basically, if you want to check that out, go ahead and send me a dono there. I don't need your super chats or your Twitch memberships right now because in 3 weeks I'll be back at work and receiving normal paychecks. So please use the link if you're going to do any donations. I'm going to go to Twitch and raid out, and we'll call it a night. So yeah, the skip comment was, oh wait, hold on. I mean, he's an attorney working at the highest level. True. He is a prosecutor. He's a sharp cookie. No, misinterpreted my comment counterpoints. I've got practical experience. I didn't mean it as a slam against Durham. Okay, cool. Cool. My bad. I bought a Wagyu steak for tomorrow, but I don't have a housewife or kids. Well, Butters, then I'm happy that your budget allows you to buy a Wagyu steak. So let's go raid out on Twitch. And then somebody said something interesting. Counterpoints, prepare for more fire if Destiny reacts to this. DGG will not take this line down. More content for the content gods. Indeed. But you know what the problem is? It's too fucking long. We've been live for a few hours. There's no way he's reacting to me for 3 hours, reacting to somebody else doing for an hour. He'll probably invite me on for a debate, or I can just jump him on a debate anyways, which we'll probably do eventually. But again, I don't see how anyone who is acting in good faith doesn't believe that this is compelling information pointing to an institutional bias. You can say that that bias is justified. I don't give a shit if you think that bias is justified, but there's at least bias. Because the timeline is off. Well, we can talk about that tomorrow, redheaded man, if I'm able to go live. So I'm gonna raid Riverboat Jack. She's a cool gal. I appreciate y'all hanging out with me tonight. We will do it again. We'll just continue this. I mean, fuck it. You know, we had like almost 100 people the entire night. So if y'all like the React Andy shit, we'll do it. Parasocial love to you and yours on Twitch chat. And then YouTube chat. I should not tell you that I love you more. Okay? I shouldn't. I should not tell you that I love you more than Twitch chat. But I do. Twitch chat gives me more money for advertising because they have like dickloads of ads on Twitch. So, you know, they give me a little bit more money than that, but I appreciate and love you more. I feel like you're more spicy in the vibes and the ways that I need. So, parasocial love to you and yours. So no worries, I get it. It was a hefty Twitch chat tonight, and I've been in and out. No offense taken. All right. Love you, General Ballsack. Parasocial love to you and yours. Fuck me, you're right, but it's such bullshit. Destiny is streaming all day tomorrow and reacts to Hassan LSF cringe more than an hour and a half. Of course. Of course. Am I still painting and playing Warhammer 40k? Yes, indeed. So I'll show this off. This is old, but I'll show it to you. So what I did is I took the Ambot. It is the robot from Necromunda. And then I took an Inceptor blast visor. And what I did effectively is I built an Imperial Guard Dreadnought that I'm going to proxy as a Bulgrin. So this guy has not been painted. I need to paint him. I just primed him. And then I also have a squad of Khazarkan and a squad of third-party Atlantic Miniatures Catechins, kip-ashed with Liber Demonica helmets on my desk. Now, they've been sitting here for a month. I should paint them. But I've been working on... terrain, basically. Where do I play at? I play at my kitchen table. I also used to play at... I forget the name of the joint, but it was like a mom and pop joint in Orlando, and then they closed down, unfortunately. I think they got bought out by Coliseum of Comics. And then... but basically, I have a battle mat, and I have a bunch of scratch-built terrain, and I have 3,000 points of Death Watch, and I have like 1,000 points of Imperial Guard, especially once I paint all these fellows. So, yeah, Tig Red. I think you said Sci-Fi City. Yeah, I used to play at Sci-Fi City. So, Tig Red, if you're in Orlando, Tig Red, since you're asking like you're a local, what army do you have? You still playing? When's my next stream? My next stream. So I can do tomorrow. I probably should do tomorrow, but I am. Oh, Zach is your mailman, so you got the Eldar. Nice. Yeah, we need to do an Eldar battle. So yeah, I got Death Watch. You can kill some Xenos killers, and I can kill some Xenos. Let's do it. So yeah. So literally in the next month or two, if you want to do, yeah, Zach and I used to be roommates. Yeah, so if you want to do a battle report live streamed to the Counterpoints channel, you have Space Wolves and Blood Angels. Nice. I'm collecting Necrons. So once I have enough Necrons, then you can kill my Xenos. I can kill your Xenos. So yeah, good times. I like it. Sounds great. But for now, it is almost 1 a.m. I'm going to go probably like script a Hell's Reach episode or something, and then I'm going to go to bed in the next couple hours. And I also need to change my son's diaper and get him for ready for the changeover. Thanks for keeping me in the baby company during my watch tutor. Andrew, thank you kindly for hanging out with me tonight. I appreciate you. Have a good night, Connor, in chat. See you next time. All right. Parasocial love to you and yours, everybody at home. I'll catch you in the next stream, probably tomorrow night, but we'll see. And I hope y'all have a beautiful night. Catch you in the next one, and bye.
Your work.